Before this year ends, your life will either become more peaceful or more painful. And the difference will not be luck, it will be your habits. In Buddhism, your future is created quietly, through the thoughts you repeat, the desires you feed, the reactions you allow, and the discipline you avoid. Most people wait for life to change, but the Buddha's path teaches that life changes when the mind changes. So if you practice these 7 habits for the next 6 months, you may not become a different person overnight, but slowly, silently, powerfully, you will stop suffering like the person you used to be. 1. Win the morning before the world enters your mind. The first habit that can change your life before this year ends is very simple. Begin the morning without immediately surrendering your mind to the world. This sounds small, but it is not small. For many people, the first thing they touch in the morning is not their breath, not their awareness, not gratitude, not silence, not their own heart. It is the phone. Before they have even sat with themselves, they have entered the marketplace of other people's opinions, problems, images, arguments, desires, fears, and distractions. And then they wonder why their mind feels restless before the day has even begun. You must understand something clearly. The morning is not just the beginning of the day. The morning is the beginning of your state of consciousness. The first moments after waking are like wet clay. Whatever touches them leaves an imprint. If anxiety touches them first, anxiety shapes the day. If comparison touches them first, comparison shapes the day. If anger touches them first, anger shapes the day. If craving touches them first, craving shapes the day. But if awareness touches them first, the day begins differently. In Buddhism, the practice is not to escape life. The practice is to meet life with a mind that is awake, and if your mind is dragged into noise before it has remembered itself, then you are already living behind your own reactions. So before this year ends, make this your first habit. When you wake up, do not rush to enter the world. Return to yourself first. Sit up, feel the body. Notice the breath entering. Notice the breath leaving. Do not make it complicated. Do not turn it into a performance. Do not think you need incense, perfect posture, a special room, or some spiritual identity. Just sit there as a human being who has been given another day. Breathe in and know that you are breathing in. Breathe out and know that you are breathing out. This is not weak. This is training. This is how you stop being controlled by every thought that appears. This is how you remind the mind that it does not have to chase every sound, every memory, every worry, every message, every fear. For a few minutes, do nothing except return. The old mind will resist this. It will say, "This is boring." It will say, "There are things to check." It will say, "You do not have time." But be honest. You had time to lose 30 minutes scrolling. You had time to replay an argument in your head. You had time to worry about things that never happened. So do not lie to yourself and say you have no time for awareness. You have time. You have simply trained your mind to spend it unconsciously. A Buddhist life begins when you stop believing every demand of the restless mind. The mind will say, "Check your phone." You say, "First I will breathe." The mind will say, "Think about yesterday." You say, "First I will arrive." The mind will say, "Worry about tomorrow." You say, "First I will be here." That small act is not small. It is rebellion against unconsciousness. Most people lose the day in the first 10 minutes. They wake up and immediately become available to everything except wisdom. They allow other people's lives to decide their first emotion. They allow news, messages, notifications, and comparison to decide the quality of their mind. They call this normal, but normal is not the same as healthy. Normal is often just suffering repeated by many people at the same time. You must stop calling your slavery normal. The Buddha taught mindfulness because the untrained mind creates suffering even in good conditions. Give the untrained mind comfort, and it will fear losing it. Give it praise, and it will crave more. Give it silence, and it will invent noise. Give it a peaceful morning, and it will search for something to disturb. So you train it. Each morning, before speaking too much, before consuming too much, before planning too much, sit with the truth of this moment. You are alive. You are breathing. This day is not guaranteed. This body is impermanent. This mind is shapeable. This life is your practice. When you begin like this, you stop moving through the day like a leaf blown by every wind. You become more rooted, not perfect. Rooted. There is a difference. Perfect people do not exist. Rooted people still feel pain, but they are not easily uprooted by it. And this habit will expose how addicted you are to mental noise. At first, 5 minutes of silence may feel uncomfortable. That is not because silence is the problem. It is because silence reveals the problem. It reveals the speed of the mind. It reveals the hunger for distraction. It reveals the emotional mess you have been avoiding. Many people say they want peace, but when peace arrives, they run from it, because peace shows them what they have not healed. Do not run. Sit. If sadness appears, notice it. If anxiety appears, notice it. If planning appears, notice it. If irritation appears, notice it. Do not attack the mind. Do not hate the mind. Do not make the mind your enemy. A mind that has been restless for years will not become calm just because you demanded it once. You must train it with patience. This is where many people fail. They try meditation for 2 days and say, "It did not work." That is childish. You fed your mind distraction for years, and now you want silence to fix everything in 2 mornings? No, that is not practice. That is spiritual laziness, wearing the clothes of disappointment. You must be more mature than that. A farmer does not plant seeds in the morning and curse the soil by evening because the tree has not appeared. A wise farmer waters, protects, waits, observes, and continues. Your mind is the same. If you want a different life in 6 months, stop demanding instant proof in 6 minutes. Morning mindfulness is watering the root. You may not see the result immediately, but the result is forming. The space between thought and reaction grows. The anger that used to possess you begins to weaken. The cravings that used to command you begin to lose authority. The fear that used to speak like truth begins to sound like just another passing voice. That is freedom beginning. This habit also teaches you humility. Every morning, when you sit with the breath, you remember that life is not yours to control completely. You are participating in conditions. You are receiving another day, not owning it. You are breathing, because causes and conditions allow breath to continue. You are not as independent as your ego pretends. Your life is supported by the earth, the air, the sun, food, water, people, ancestors, labor, and countless conditions you rarely notice. When you begin the morning in awareness, gratitude becomes natural. Not forced gratitude, not fake positivity, real gratitude. The kind that says, "This breath is enough to begin again," and beginning again is one of the most powerful habits in Buddhism. You do not need to carry yesterday into today like a dead weight. You do not need to wake up and immediately become the same angry person, the same wounded person, the same jealous person, the same fearful person. You can begin again, but you cannot begin again if the first thing you do is feed the old identity. If you wake up and instantly check the people who trigger comparison, you have chosen the old mind. If you wake up and replay yesterday's insult, you have chosen the old mind. If you wake up and complain before breathing consciously once, you have chosen the old mind. And then, do not be surprised when the old life continues. The path is honest. It gives back what you practice. So practice arriving. For 6 months, give the first moments of the day to awareness. Not because you want to look spiritual, not because you want to tell people you meditate, not because you want an aesthetic routine. Do it because your mind is the instrument through which you experience your entire life. If that instrument is out of tune every morning, everything you play through it will sound disturbed. Your relationships will be disturbed. Your work will be disturbed. Your choices will be disturbed. Your self-respect will be disturbed. But when the mind becomes clearer, life becomes clearer. You may still have bills. You may still have difficult people. You may still have responsibilities. Buddhism does not promise that awareness removes every external challenge. It teaches something better. It teaches that you can meet conditions without becoming completely possessed by them. That is a different kind of power. A person who cannot sit with their own breath for 5 minutes is not free. They may have money, they may have status, they may have entertainment, but if their mind drags them everywhere, they are not free. Freedom begins when you can be with yourself without running. So tomorrow morning, do not negotiate with the old mind. Sit up, breathe. Place one hand on the heart if it helps you remember. Let the body know it is alive. Let the mind know it is being trained. Let the day begin from presence, not panic. Say silently, "Today, I will not abandon myself," and then live the day from that vow. 2. Guard your speech like it shapes your destiny. The second habit that can change your life before this year ends is learning to guard your speech. Most people do not take speech seriously enough. They treat words like air, as if they disappear after leaving the mouth. But words do not disappear. Words create atmosphere. Words create karma. Words build trust or destroy it. Words calm the heart or poison it. Words can heal a relationship that was close to breaking, and words can break a relationship that took years to build. In Buddhism, right speech is not decoration. It is a major part of the path. Why? Because speech reveals the mind, and speech trains the mind. Every time you speak from anger, anger becomes stronger. Every time you speak from jealousy, jealousy becomes stronger. Every time you speak from cruelty, cruelty becomes more natural. Every time you gossip, your mind becomes more comfortable living in other people's faults. Every time you exaggerate, your mind becomes less loyal to truth. You are not just speaking, you are becoming the kind of person who speaks that way. This is why the habit of right speech can transform your life in 6 months. It forces you to become conscious before words leave your mouth. And once you become conscious before speaking, you become conscious before acting. Once you become conscious before acting, you begin changing your karma. Do not underestimate this. Many people destroy their peace with their own tongue and then blame the world for being difficult. They say too much. They promise too much. They complain too much. They explain too much. They defend themselves too much. They insult, gossip, exaggerate, manipulate, flatter, and then wonder why their relationships are full of tension. Your mouth can become a door to liberation or a door to suffering. Be honest with yourself. How many problems in your life became bigger because you spoke while angry? How many relationships became heavy because you said what did not need to be said? How many nights did you lose sleep because of one conversation where the ego wanted to win? How many times did you use the truth not to heal, but to hurt? How many times did you call it honesty when it was really aggression? Right speech is not silence all the time. That is a misunderstanding. Right speech means speech that is true, useful, timely, and rooted in a mind that is not trying to harm. Some people hide behind silence because they are afraid. That is not wisdom. Some people speak harshly and call it truth. That is not wisdom either. The path is more refined than both. It asks, is this true? Is this necessary? Is this the right time? Is my heart clean while saying it? That last question matters. You can say true words with an unclean heart. You can use facts as weapons. You can expose someone not because it helps, but because your ego enjoys power. You can correct someone not because you care, but because you want superiority. Many people think truth alone makes speech right. No, truth without compassion can become cruelty. Compassion without truth can become weakness. Right speech requires both. Before this year ends, train yourself to pause before speaking. A pause is not empty. A pause is wisdom entering the room. When someone irritates you, pause. When someone misunderstands you, pause. When someone insults you, pause. When someone tries to pull you into gossip, pause. When your ego wants to prove it is right, pause. That pause may save you from creating suffering that takes weeks or years to repair. The untrained person believes every feeling deserves expression. The wise person knows that many feelings only need observation. You do not need to speak every anger. You do not need to announce every opinion. You do not need to correct every mistake. You do not need to join every argument. You do not need to respond to every accusation. You do not need to defend your image to every confused person. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is refusing to throw more wood into a fire that is already burning. But again, do not use Buddhism as an excuse for cowardice. If something must be said, say it clearly. If a boundary must be spoken, speak it. If someone is harming you, do not pretend that passive silence is enlightenment. Buddhism is not people-pleasing. Compassion does not mean becoming a doormat. Non-attachment does not mean allowing disrespect. Right speech can be firm. It can say, no. It can say, this is not acceptable. It can say, I will not continue this conversation while you speak to me this way. The difference is that right speech does not come from hatred, it comes from clarity. That is the habit. Speak from clarity, not from emotional intoxication. Anger is intoxicating. It makes you feel powerful while it is making you foolish. Pride is intoxicating. It makes you feel important while it is making you blind. Hurt is intoxicating. It makes you feel justified while it is making you cruel. That is why you need the pause. The pause lets the intoxication weaken before words become calmer. For 6 months, practice 4 kinds of restraint. First, restrain gossip. Gossip feels sweet to the ego because it gives you a cheap sense of superiority. When you discuss someone else's weakness, you temporarily avoid your own. But that pleasure is dirty. It leaves the mind more judgmental, more suspicious, and less peaceful. A person who gossips with you will likely gossip about you. More importantly, the mind that enjoys gossip cannot enter deep compassion. It is always scanning for flaws. If you want peace, stop feeding your mind other people's private failures. Second, restrain unnecessary complaint. Complaint is not the same as honest problem solving. If something is wrong and you are discussing how to fix it, that is useful. But many people complain as a lifestyle. They complain about the weather, the government, their family, their work, their body, their past, their luck, their responsibilities, and even their blessings. The mind becomes trained to search for what is missing, and whatever the mind searches for, it finds. Before this year ends, stop being loyal to complaint. You can acknowledge pain without worshipping it. Third, restrain harsh speech. Do not confuse sharpness with strength. Anyone can be harsh. It does not require wisdom, it only requires lack of restraint. A person who can speak firmly without humiliating others has real strength. A person who can disagree without dehumanizing has real discipline. A person who can be hurt without becoming intentionally hurtful has real practice. That is rare. Become rare. Fourth, restrain false speech. Lying breaks the mind. Even small lies create inner division. One part of you knows the truth. Another part performs a false version, and over time you lose contact with your own integrity. A liar does not only deceive others. A liar trains themselves to live away from reality, and Buddhism is the path of seeing reality clearly. You cannot walk toward awakening while constantly decorating falsehood. Be truthful, but not reckless. Be honest, but not cruel. Be clear, but not obsessed with exposing everything. Right speech is not dumping every thought. It is choosing words that serve truth and reduce suffering. If you practice this for 6 months, people may notice you becoming quieter. Let them. They may say you changed. Good, you did. They may try to pull you back into old conversations. Do not go. Every environment has a language. Some families speak in complaint. Some friendships speak in gossip. Some workplaces speak in blame. Some online spaces speak in outrage. If you want a different mind, you cannot keep bathing in the same speech. You must choose your language like you choose your food. Rotten speech creates a rotten mental atmosphere. Clean speech creates dignity. And here is something important. When you stop speaking unconsciously, you will begin hearing yourself more clearly. You will notice how often you were speaking to get approval. You will notice how often you exaggerated to seem more interesting. You will notice how often you complained to receive sympathy. You will notice how often you criticized others to avoid feeling small. Do not hate yourself when you see this. Seeing is progress. Awareness is not there to shame you. Awareness is there to liberate you. The old habit says, say it now, react now, win now. The Buddhist habit says, pause, breathe, see the intention, then speak or do not speak. This habit alone can change your life. Your relationships become lighter because you stop throwing unnecessary poison into them. Your mind becomes calmer because you stop rehearsing arguments. Your self-respect grows because you stop betraying truth. Your presence becomes stronger because your words are no longer cheap. A person who speaks less but speaks truthfully carries weight. Do not be impressed by people who dominate conversations. Many are just afraid of silence. Be impressed by the person whose words come from stillness. Be impressed by the person who can say one sentence and bring peace. Be impressed by the person who can refuse cruelty even when anger gives them a perfect excuse. That is practice. Before this year ends, make your speech a monastery. Let fewer words leave, but let better words leave. Let your mouth become a place where truth is protected. Let people feel safer after speaking with you, not more wounded. Let your words reduce confusion, not multiply it. Let your silence be clean, not resentful. Let your honesty be compassionate, not violent. And when you fail, because you will fail, do not dramatize it. Apologize quickly. Correct the karma. Learn. Begin again. The Buddhist path is not about never falling. It is about falling with awareness and standing up with more wisdom. So today, before you speak, ask yourself, will these words create freedom or suffering? That question can save your life from years of unnecessary pain. 3. Consume only what you are willing to become. The third habit that can change your life before this year ends is becoming deeply mindful of what you consume. Most people think consumption only means food, but you consume everything you allow into your senses. You consume conversations, you consume videos, you consume music, you consume news, you consume social media, you consume other people's moods, you consume environments, you consume ideas, you consume desires, you consume fear, and whatever you consume repeatedly becomes part of your mind. This is not philosophy, this is observable. Spend enough time around angry people, and your nervous system becomes prepared for conflict. Spend enough time watching content that triggers envy, and your life begins to feel insufficient. Spend enough time listening to complaint, and gratitude becomes harder. Spend enough time consuming outrage, and peace begins to feel boring. Spend enough time feeding lust, greed, and comparison, and then do not act surprised when meditation feels impossible. You cannot poison the mind all day and expect it to become peaceful at night. That is the blunt truth. Many people want Buddhist peace while living in anti-Buddhist consumption. They want a calm mind, but they feed it chaos. They want non-attachment, but they scroll through endless objects of craving. They want compassion, but they consume content that trains judgment. They want wisdom, but they fill every empty moment with noise. Then they say, "My mind is too restless to meditate." Of course it is restless. You trained it that way. Before this year ends, begin asking one ruthless question: what is this turning me into? Not, is this entertaining? Not, is everyone else watching it? Not, does this distract me from my pain? Ask, what is this turning me into? That one question cuts through a lot of nonsense. Some things are not obviously harmful in one dose, but they become destructive through repetition. One bitter conversation may not ruin your mind, but daily bitterness becomes your personality. 1 hour of comparison may not destroy your confidence, but months of comparison will make your own life look like a punishment. One angry video may not make you cruel, but constant outrage will make your heart addicted to enemies. The mind takes the shape of what it repeatedly touches. In Buddhism, sense restraint is not about hating the world. It is about understanding cause and effect. You are not a stone, you are impressionable. Your mind is conditioned by contact. When the eye contacts images, feelings arise. When the ear contacts words, feelings arise. When the mind contacts memories and ideas, feelings arise. If there is no awareness, craving and aversion take over. This is how suffering reproduces itself. You see something pleasant, and craving says, I need that. You see something unpleasant, and aversion says, I hate that. You see someone successful, and comparison says, I am behind. You see someone attractive, and desire says, my life is incomplete. You see someone being praised, and insecurity says, why not me? The problem is not that the world appears. The problem is that the untrained mind keeps clinging to appearances. Mindful consumption gives you back your power. For 6 months, treat your senses like sacred gates. Do not let every fool, every algorithm, every angry stranger, every manipulative advertisement, every empty trend, and every toxic voice walk into your mind and rearrange your inner furniture. Your attention is not cheap. In fact, your attention is one of the most valuable things you have. What you attend to grows in your consciousness. If you attend to resentment, resentment grows. If you attend to fear, fear grows. If you attend to compassion, compassion grows. If you attend to impermanence, wisdom grows. If you attend to the breath, presence grows. So the question is not whether you are practicing, you are always practicing something. Scrolling is practice. Worrying is practice. Complaining is practice. Comparing is practice. Judging is practice. Avoiding is practice. Every repeated mental movement is training you. The only question is whether your practice leads to freedom or suffering. This habit begins with honesty about your daily intake. Look at what you watch. Does it make your mind clearer or more agitated? Look at who you listen to. Do they awaken wisdom or feed bitterness? Look at what you read. Does it deepen understanding or stimulate craving? Look at the conversations you keep having. Do they lead to compassion, responsibility, and truth, or do they keep you trapped in blame? Do not be vague. Be honest. Many people protect their distractions like they are protecting loved ones. They say, it is not that serious. That is exactly how unconscious habits survive. They survive by pretending they are small. But small actions repeated daily are not small. They are identity builders. If you watch things every night that disturb your mind, your sleep will carry disturbance. If you check stressful content every morning, your day will carry stress. If you constantly consume people who make you feel inadequate, your confidence will decay. And if you keep calling this harmless, you are lying to yourself because you do not want discipline. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is protection. You protect a garden with a fence not because you hate the outside world, but because you respect what is growing inside. Your mind also needs a fence, not a wall of fear, a fence of wisdom, a boundary that says, this does not belong in me, a boundary that says, I will not feed this, a boundary that says, my peace matters more than this temporary stimulation. This is especially important in the age of endless information. People are drowning in information and starving for wisdom. They know every scandal, every trend, every argument, every update, every stranger's opinion, but they do not know their own mind. They can discuss the world for hours but cannot sit quietly with their breath for 5 minutes. That is not intelligence. That is fragmentation. A Buddhist life requires you to simplify, not because simplicity is fashionable, but because complexity without awareness becomes suffering. Simplify your inputs. Reduce the noise. Choose what enters. Create spaces in the day where nothing is being consumed. Walk without headphones sometimes. Eat without a screen sometimes. Sit without reaching for stimulation sometimes. Let the mind detox from constant input. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. Again, discomfort is not proof that the practice is wrong. It is proof that addiction is being exposed. The mind addicted to noise experiences silence as deprivation. The mind addicted to craving experiences simplicity as boredom. The mind addicted to drama experiences peace as emptiness. But if you stay with the practice, silence becomes nourishing. Simplicity becomes freedom. Peace becomes natural. This habit also applies to food, of course. The Buddhist approach to eating is not obsession with purity or body image. It is awareness. Eat in a way that supports clarity. Eat with gratitude. Eat without greed. Eat enough, not endlessly. Notice whether you eat to nourish the body or to escape the mind. Many people do not eat because the body needs food. They eat because loneliness needs comfort, boredom needs stimulation, sadness needs softness, or anxiety needs something to control. Again, do not shame yourself. Just see clearly. When eating, know you are eating. When drinking, know you are drinking. When consuming entertainment, know what state it creates. When speaking with someone, notice the emotional residue they leave behind. When leaving a place, ask whether your mind feels lighter or heavier. This is practical Buddhism, not theory, not decoration, not quoting wise words while living unconsciously. Actual practice. Before this year ends, make a serious decision. Stop consuming things that make you spiritually weaker. That may mean reducing certain content. It may mean unfollowing people who trigger envy or anger. It may mean leaving conversations that revolve around gossip. It may mean refusing entertainment that leaves your mind more restless. It may mean spending more time with teachings that bring clarity. It may mean reading slowly instead of scrolling endlessly. It may mean replacing 1 hour of noise with 1 hour of silence, walking, journaling, chanting, meditation, or service. Do not make the mistake of thinking your environment does not matter. It matters. Conditions matter. The Buddha taught dependent origination, cause and effect, conditions giving rise to experience. If you keep placing yourself in conditions that produce craving, anger, and delusion, you are making the path harder than it needs to be. You are not weak for needing better conditions. You are wise for creating them. A monk does not live simply because he hates beauty. He lives simply because he understands how easily the mind gets entangled. You may not live in a monastery, but you can create small monasteries in your day. A quiet morning, a mindful meal, a clean room, a phone-free walk, a conversation without gossip, a night without feeding the mind more fear. These are not small things, they are conditions for awakening. In 6 months, mindful consumption can change your face. That may sound strange, but it is true. A person who consumes less anger begins to look less tense. A person who consumes less comparison begins to carry more ease. A person who consumes less noise begins to speak more slowly. A person who consumes more wisdom begins to respond with more depth. The body shows what the mind repeatedly eats. So ask yourself today, what am I feeding? Are you feeding peace or panic? Wisdom or distraction? Compassion or judgment? Freedom or craving? Gratitude or envy? Stillness or restlessness? Your future self is being built by your current diet of impressions. Choose carefully. 4. Practice letting go before life forces you. To the fourth habit that can change your life before this year ends is practicing letting go every day. Not once in a while, not only when something painful happens. Every day. Because whether you practice letting go or not, life will still take things from you. Life will change your body. Life will change your relationships. Life will change your plans. Life will change your identity. Life will bring meetings and separations, gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. That is not pessimism, that is reality. Buddhism begins with the courage to face reality without decoration. Everything conditioned is impermanent. Everything that comes together eventually separates. Every emotion changes. Every possession changes hands. Every role fades. Every body ages. Every reputation shifts. Every season passes. You can resist this truth, but resistance will not stop impermanence. It will only make impermanence more painful. So the wise person practices letting go before being forced. Letting go does not mean you do not care. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings. People think non-attachment means coldness. It does not. Non-attachment means love without possession, effort without obsession, responsibility without control addiction, appreciation without clinging, presence without demanding permanence from what is naturally changing. Attachment says, you must stay the same so I can feel safe. Love says, I honor you as you are, even as life changes. Attachment says, this outcome must happen, or I cannot be peaceful. Wisdom says, I will act with care, but I will not make my peace dependent on controlling every result. Attachment says, this identity is who I am. Awareness says, this too is a temporary formation. Before this year ends, make letting go a daily habit. Start with small things. Let go of the need to have the last word. Let go of checking whether someone noticed you. Let go of replaying one comment for hours. Let go of the fantasy that everyone must understand your intentions. Let go of the urge to control how others see you. Let go of one unnecessary desire. Let go of one complaint. Let go of one object you do not need. Let go of one story about who you were. Small letting go prepares you for big letting go. If you cannot release a minor insult, how will you release a major loss? If you cannot release a delayed message, how will you release a broken relationship? If you cannot release a small inconvenience, how will you release the deeper changes life will certainly bring? This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to mature you. Many people are emotionally untrained because they have practiced clinging their entire lives. They cling to people who have left. They cling to versions of themselves that no longer exist. They cling to pain because pain gives them identity. They cling to being right because being wrong feels like death to the ego. They cling to resentment because forgiveness feels like losing power. They cling to fantasies because reality asks too much honesty. And then they call their suffering love, loyalty, memory, or justice. Sometimes it is not love. Sometimes it is attachment. Sometimes it is not loyalty. Sometimes it is fear of emptiness. Sometimes it is not justice. Sometimes it is ego refusing to stop chewing old poison. You need to be brutally honest with yourself here. Buddhism is gentle, but it is not sentimental. It does not flatter your suffering. It asks you to look directly at the cause. What are you holding that is holding you back? A person? A memory? A regret? A version of success? A family wound? A betrayal? A comparison? An old identity? A fantasy of who would apologize? A belief that life should have been different? Look at it, not with hatred, not with drama. Look with steady attention. You may notice that part of you does not want to let go because the pain has become familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than unknown freedom. That is why people return to the same emotional patterns even when they know they are suffering. The prison is painful, but at least they know its walls. Letting go means stepping into space, and space can scare the ego. If you let go of resentment, who are you without the story of being wronged? If you let go of needing approval, who are you without applause? If you let go of comparison, who are you without measuring yourself against others? If you let go of control, who are you when life moves on its own terms? These questions are not easy, but they are liberating. A practical daily letting go habit can be very simple. At night, sit quietly and ask, what am I carrying from today that does not need to enter tomorrow? Then name it. Maybe it is irritation, maybe it is jealousy, maybe it is shame, maybe it is someone's tone of voice, maybe it is disappointment. Breathe in, acknowledge it. Breathe out, release the grip. Do not pretend it disappears instantly. Letting go is not always a single dramatic act. Sometimes it is loosening one finger at a time. The mind may pick it back up, then release again. It may return tomorrow. Release again. It may return for weeks. Release again. This is practice. You are not failing because the thought returns. You are practicing each time you stop worshipping it. There is a difference between a thought visiting and a thought becoming your home. Letting go means you stop building a house for every painful visitor. This habit also includes letting go of outcomes. This is difficult because the ego loves control. It wants guarantees. It wants certainty. It wants life to sign a contract before it relaxes. But life does not operate that way. You can plant seeds, but you cannot force rain. You can act kindly, but you cannot force appreciation. You can speak truth, but you cannot force understanding. You can love someone, but you cannot force them to become conscious. You can work with discipline, but you cannot control every result. Right effort is yours. The result belongs to causes and conditions. This does not mean you become passive. Weak people misunderstand letting go as giving up. That is not Buddhism. Buddhism asks for right effort, not laziness. You still act. You still practice. You still work. You still repair what can be repaired. You still protect what must be protected. But you stop tying your entire identity to whether the result obeys your desire. That is freedom. When you practice this, failure becomes less destructive. Success becomes less intoxicating. Criticism becomes less paralyzing. Praise becomes less addictive. You begin to move through life with more balance because you are not constantly thrown around by gain and loss. This is especially powerful in relationships. Let people be impermanent. That does not mean you expect betrayal. It means you stop demanding that another human being become the permanent foundation of your peace. People change, people struggle, people misunderstand, people leave, people die, people awaken, people fall asleep again. If your entire inner world depends on controlling another person, suffering is guaranteed. Love people, but do not imprison them inside your need, and do not imprison yourself either. Sometimes you are not attached to a person, you are attached to who you became around them. Sometimes you miss the feeling more than the reality. Sometimes you are grieving a fantasy, not the actual relationship. Sometimes you keep suffering because you refuse to admit that what you wanted and what existed were not the same thing. Letting go requires truth. Truth may hurt at first, but illusion hurts longer. The Buddhist path does not ask you to become heartless. It asks you to stop confusing clinging with love. Real love has space in it. Real love wants freedom, not possession. Real love does not demand that impermanent beings carry impossible expectations. Practice saying internally, "This too is changing." When joy comes, "This too is changing." This helps you appreciate it without clinging. When pain comes, "This too is changing." This helps you endure it without despair. When praise comes, "This too is changing." This protects humility. When blame comes, "This too is changing." This protects your sanity. When desire comes, "This too is changing." This protects your freedom. Impermanence is not only the reason you suffer, it is also the reason you can heal. If pain were permanent, there would be no path. If anger were permanent, there would be no liberation. If your past were permanent, transformation would be impossible. But because all conditioned things change, you are not trapped. The person you have been is not a life sentence. The mind you have trained can be retrained. The habits that shaped your suffering can be weakened. Impermanence is mercy when you understand it. Before this year ends, practice letting go as daily hygiene. You clean the body, clean the mind. You remove dust from your room, remove old resentment from your heart. You delete files from a device, delete unnecessary stories from your identity. You exhale carbon from the body, exhale clinging from consciousness. Every day, release something. Release the need to be admired. Release the need to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding. Release the need to punish yourself for old mistakes. Release the idea that your path must look like someone else's. Release the belief that discomfort means you are failing. Release the craving for constant stimulation. Release the habit of making everything personal. And one day, you will notice that you are lighter. Not because life became empty, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours to carry. 5. Train compassion until it becomes stronger than your ego. The fifth habit that can change your life before this year ends is training compassion every day. Not sentimental compassion, not weak compassion, not the kind that says yes when it should say no, not the kind that allows people to harm you while you call it spirituality. Real compassion, strong compassion, clear compassion, the kind that understands suffering and refuses to add more. In Buddhism, compassion is not just a nice feeling, it is a practice. It is a discipline of the heart. It is the training of the mind to see beyond the prison of me, mine, and my problem. The ego shrinks your world until your own pain becomes the only reality. Compassion expands your world. It reminds you that every being wants happiness. Every being fears pain. Every being is shaped by causes and conditions, and every being is struggling with ignorance in some form. This does not excuse harmful behavior. Understand that clearly. Compassion does not mean you deny harm. It means you do not let harm turn your heart into hatred. That is difficult. That is why it is practice. Anyone can be kind when they are comfortable. Anyone can smile when praised. Anyone can feel generous when they have more than enough. But Buddhist compassion becomes real when your ego has a reason to close, and you choose not to let it become cruel. Before this year ends, make compassion a daily habit. Begin with yourself. Many people skip this and then become fake. They try to be compassionate to the world while speaking to themselves with violence. They say kind things to strangers and brutal things inside their own head. They forgive others but keep punishing themselves for mistakes from years ago. That is not balanced practice. If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. But self-compassion is not self-pity. Do not confuse the two. Self-pity says, "Poor me, life is unfair, I cannot change." Self-compassion says, "This is painful, but I can meet myself with honesty and care." Self-pity makes you weaker. Self-compassion gives you the strength to take responsibility without hatred. When you fail, self-compassion says, "I see the mistake. I will learn." It does not say, "I am worthless." When you feel pain, self-compassion says, "This hurts." It does not say, "I am the only one who suffers." When you are tired, self-compassion says, "Rest wisely." It does not say, "Abandon discipline forever." That distinction matters. Many people use being kind to myself as an excuse to avoid growth. That is not compassion, that is indulgence. If you keep feeding the habit that destroys you, do not call it kindness. If you keep avoiding responsibility, do not call it healing. If you keep returning to toxic patterns because they comfort you briefly, do not call it self-love. Real compassion sometimes tells you the truth you do not want to hear. It says, stop poisoning yourself. It says, stop chasing someone who does not value you. It says, stop using your pain as an excuse to harm others. It says, stop pretending you are helpless when you are simply afraid of discipline. It says, stand up, begin again. That is compassionate because it leads to freedom. Once you begin with yourself, extend compassion outward. A simple daily practice is loving kindness meditation. Sit quietly and bring to mind the wish, may I be free from suffering, may I be peaceful, may I be wise, may I be safe, may I awaken. Then bring to mind someone you love. May you be free from suffering, may you be peaceful, may you be wise, may you be safe, may you awaken. Then someone neutral, then someone difficult, then all beings. Do not worry if you do not feel warm emotion immediately. Compassion is not always a feeling at first. Sometimes it is an intention repeated until the heart softens. If you have trained judgment for years, compassion may feel unnatural. Continue anyway. You are rewiring the heart. When you practice compassion toward difficult people, be careful. This does not mean inviting them back into your life. It does not mean trusting the untrustworthy. It does not mean allowing abuse. It means you stop letting hatred occupy your mind. You can wish someone freedom from ignorance while keeping a firm boundary. You can understand that someone acts from suffering while still refusing to be their victim. You can release vengeance while choosing distance. That is mature compassion. Weak compassion has no boundaries. Egoic anger has no mercy. Buddhist compassion has both mercy and boundaries. If someone is harmful, compassion may say, I will not hate you, but I will not give you access to me. If someone keeps lying, compassion may say, may you awaken, but I will not build my life on your words. If someone disrespects you, compassion may say, I see your suffering, but I will not allow your suffering to become my daily environment. This is important because many spiritual people become confused. They think being compassionate means being endlessly available. No, availability without wisdom becomes self-betrayal. The Bodhisattva ideal is not stupidity, it is courageous wisdom serving liberation. Train compassion in ordinary moments. When someone is rude in traffic, notice the instant anger. Then remember, this person also suffers. That does not make their behavior right. It keeps your mind from burning. When a family member speaks harshly, notice the pain. Then remember, this person is speaking from conditions I may not fully see. Again, you can still set a boundary, but you do not need to become hatred. When you see someone succeeding and envy arises, practice compassion. May their happiness continue. May I also walk my path wisely. This weakens comparison. Compassion is medicine for envy. Envy says, your joy threatens me. Compassion says, your joy does not steal mine. Envy says, why them? Compassion says, may all beings receive what supports awakening. This is not easy, but it is powerful. A mind that can rejoice in others' happiness is much freer than a mind that suffers every time someone else shines. Train sympathetic joy. This is part of the Buddhist heart. When someone grows, bless it. When someone heals, bless it. When someone receives an opportunity, bless it. Do not let the ego turn every blessing around you into evidence against your life. That is a miserable way to live. Someone else's sunrise is not your sunset. Compassion also changes how you listen. Most people listen only enough to reply. They listen through self-interest. They wait for their turn. They prepare their defense. They compare stories. They secretly judge. But compassionate listening is different. It gives full attention. It does not rush to fix, dominate, or redirect. It allows another person to be heard. This is rare, and because it is rare, it is healing. Before this year ends, practice listening as compassion. When someone speaks, Do not immediately turn the conversation back to yourself. Do not interrupt with your own story. Do not offer cheap advice before understanding. Listen as if the person in front of you is carrying invisible wounds, because they probably are. But again, do not become a dumping ground for everyone's unconsciousness. Compassionate listening does not mean absorbing endless negativity. You can listen deeply and still say, "I care about you, but I cannot keep having the same destructive conversation." Compassion must include wisdom. This habit will change your relationships because people can feel when your heart is less self-centered. They may not use Buddhist language, but they feel it. They feel when you are not secretly competing. They feel when your words are not weapons. They feel when your presence is not demanding. They feel when you are not trying to use them to feed your ego. And more importantly, you feel it. A compassionate mind is a lighter mind. Hatred is heavy. Resentment is heavy. Judgment is heavy. Constant self-focus is heavy. Compassion loosens the tight fist around me. It lets the heart breathe. It reminds you that you are part of a vast web of suffering and awakening. When you understand this, arrogance becomes harder. You see that everyone is conditioned. The cruel person is conditioned. The fearful person is conditioned. The greedy person is conditioned. You are conditioned too. This does not remove responsibility, but it removes the fantasy that you are separate and superior. Humility grows, and humility is essential for liberation. A proud person cannot learn deeply because they already think they know. A bitter person cannot love deeply because they are always defending their wound. A selfish person cannot see clearly because everything is filtered through gain and loss. Compassion breaks these prisons. For 6 months, do one compassionate act every day without needing recognition. Help someone. Forgive a small irritation. Speak gently when you could speak sharply. Feed an animal. Call someone lonely. Encourage someone sincerely. Give without announcing it. Clean something that benefits others. Share knowledge. Practice patience with a difficult person. Practice patience with yourself. But do it without turning compassion into ego decoration. The ego can even use kindness to feel superior. Watch for that. If you help someone and then secretly demand admiration, that is not pure giving. If you act compassionate so people see you as spiritual, that is performance. If you give only to control someone, that is manipulation. Buddhist practice requires clean intention. You will not always have clean intention. Notice it. Purify it. Continue. One of the most powerful forms of compassion is refusing to pass your suffering forward. Someone hurts you, and the unconscious habit is to hurt someone else. You get humiliated, and you become sharp with someone weaker. You feel ignored, and you ignore someone who needs you. You feel powerless, and you try to control another person. This is how suffering travels through families, workplaces, friendships, and generations. Compassion interrupts the chain. It says, "Pain came to me, but I will not make it someone else's burden." That is strength. That is spiritual adulthood. That is how karma changes. Before this year ends, become the person who does not spread the fire. You may not be able to control who throws sparks at you, but you can stop becoming another source of burning. You can cool the room. You can soften the conversation. You can end the cycle. You can choose not to transmit the wound. This does not make you weak. It makes you powerful in the only way that matters. 6. Do one difficult thing every day with right effort. The 6th habit that can change your life before this year ends is doing one difficult thing every day with right effort. This is where many people who like spiritual ideas become exposed. They enjoy peace, compassion, mindfulness, and letting go when these words feel comforting. But when the path asks for effort, discipline, restraint, and consistency, they disappear. They call it flow. They say they are honoring their energy. Sometimes that is true. Often, it is just avoidance with nicer language. Buddhism is not laziness. The Noble Eightfold Path includes right effort, not extreme effort, not self-hatred, not obsession, right effort. The steady energy to prevent unwholesome states from arising, abandon unwholesome states that have arisen, cultivate wholesome states not yet arisen, and maintain wholesome states already present. That is practical. That is serious. That is not passive. If you want your life to change before this year ends, you must stop waiting until you feel ready. Feelings are unreliable leaders. Some days you feel inspired. Some days you feel dull. Some days you feel confident. Some days you feel like disappearing. If your practice depends entirely on mood, your life will remain unstable. Right effort means you do what supports awakening even when the mood is not perfect. You meditate when the mind is restless. You speak truth when it is uncomfortable. You exercise when the body is lazy. You apologize when pride resists. You clean your space when depression wants chaos. You finish the task when distraction wants escape. You keep the vow when desire offers excuses. This is how character is built, not through intention alone. Intention matters, but repeated action reveals your real priorities. Many people say they want peace, but their habits show they want stimulation. They say they want wisdom, but their habits show they want comfort. They say they want freedom, but their habits show they want approval. They say they want growth, but their habits show they want the same life with less consequences. That is not how reality works. You cannot keep feeding the causes of suffering and demand the fruit of liberation. Right effort asks for honesty. What are you avoiding that would actually help you? What small discipline are you refusing because the ego wants ease? What difficult conversation have you postponed? What practice have you abandoned because it did not entertain you? What responsibility are you pretending not to see? Do not answer politely, answer truthfully. Before this year ends, choose one difficult thing every day. It does not have to be dramatic. In fact, it is better if it is simple and repeatable. Sit in meditation for 10 minutes even when restless. Walk for 20 minutes even when lazy. Clean the room even when the mind wants to rot in disorder. Read a page of Dharma instead of scrolling. Speak one honest sentence you have avoided. Do one act of service. Finish one task before starting another. Refuse one craving. Wake up when you said you would. One difficult thing every day trains the mind to respect your intention. Right now, your mind may not respect you because you have broken too many promises to yourself. That is blunt, but true. Every time you say, "I will do this," and then you do not, the mind learns that your word is weak. Every time craving commands and you obey, craving becomes king. Every time laziness speaks and you surrender, laziness becomes stronger. Self-respect is built by keeping clean promises. Do not make huge promises you cannot keep. That is ego. Make small promises and keep them. A small promise kept is more powerful than a grand promise abandoned. This is very Buddhist. The path is walked step by step, breath by breath, choice by choice. You do not awaken by making dramatic declarations. You awaken by seeing clearly and practicing consistently. The ego loves dramatic transformation because it wants identity. It wants to say, "I am changing my whole life." But the deeper path is humble. It says, "Today I will do what is wholesome. Today I will abandon one unwholesome habit. Today I will return when I wander." Right effort is not violent effort. This must be understood. Some people hear discipline and turn it into self-abuse. They force, punish, shame, and exhaust themselves. That is not right effort. That is craving, disguised as productivity. The Buddha rejected both indulgence and extreme self-mortification. The middle way is not weak. It is balanced. It is sustainable. It is intelligent. Right effort has steadiness, not panic. If you miss a day, return the next day. Do not use failure as an excuse to collapse. That is another trick of the ego. It says, "I failed once, so everything is ruined." No, that is childish perfectionism. The path does not require flawless performance. It requires returning. Returning is a sacred habit. When the mind wanders in meditation, you return to the breath. When speech becomes harsh, you return to right speech. When craving takes over, you return to awareness. When laziness wins one morning, you return the next morning. The power is not in never falling. The power is in reducing the time you stay unconscious. Before this year ends, reduce the recovery time. Maybe before, anger possessed you for 3 days. Now practice reducing it to 3 hours, then 30 minutes, then 3 breaths. Maybe before, one failure made you quit for months. Now return the next day. Maybe before, sadness made you abandon all discipline. Now keep one small practice alive even during sadness. That is real transformation. This habit will also teach you the difference between pain and suffering. Some difficulty is necessary pain. Exercise can be uncomfortable. Apologizing can be uncomfortable. Meditation can be uncomfortable. Discipline can be uncomfortable. Letting go can be uncomfortable. But this discomfort may lead to freedom. Suffering, in the Buddhist sense, often comes from craving, aversion, and delusion. It is the extra mental struggle added on top of experience. You feel discomfort and then say, "I hate this, I cannot handle this should not be happening. I need escape." That mental resistance multiplies pain. Right effort teaches you to meet discomfort without panic. You sit through restlessness. You breathe through craving. You stay present with boredom. You continue through uncertainty. This does not mean you ignore real harm. It means you stop treating every discomfort as a command to quit. Modern life has made many people soft in the wrong way. They are overstimulated, easily offended, addicted to convenience, and terrified of boredom. That is a bad combination. A mind that cannot endure boredom will chase distraction. A mind that cannot endure discomfort will abandon growth. A mind that cannot endure criticism will worship approval. A mind that cannot endure uncertainty will cling to control. Right effort strengthens the mind. Again, not through brutality, through steady training. Think of a musician practicing scales. Think of a gardener tending soil. Think of a monk returning to the cushion. No one becomes skillful by occasional enthusiasm. Skill comes through repetition. Peace is also a skill. Compassion is a skill. Patience is a skill. Letting go is a skill. Concentration is a skill. You must practice the skills you want to live from. For 6 months, choose daily effort over daily excuse. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a home. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Conditions are never perfect for long. Do not wait for people to support you. Some people benefit from the old version of you and will not celebrate your awakening. Do not wait until the mind feels pure. Practice purifies the mind. Start now. If your room is chaotic, clean one corner. If your body is neglected, take one walk. If your mind is restless, sit for 5 minutes. If your speech is careless, pause before the next sentence. If your heart is bitter, practice one wish of compassion. If your life is scattered, complete one task fully. One difficult, wholesome act a day. That is enough to begin a revolution. After 6 months, you will trust yourself more. Not because life became easy, but because you stopped abandoning yourself when effort was required. That trust is precious. A person who trusts their own discipline does not need constant emotional excitement. They can move steadily. They can survive low moods. They can continue when applause disappears. This is how spiritual maturity looks. Quiet, steady, honest, repeated. 7. End each day by looking honestly at your karma. The 7th habit that can change your life before this year ends is ending each day by looking honestly at your karma. Not with fear, not with shame, not with superstition. with clarity. Karma is not some simplistic system where life instantly rewards and punishes every action in a way your ego can understand. Karma means action, intention, cause and effect. Every day, you plant seeds through body, speech and mind. Some seeds are wholesome, some are unwholesome. Some lead to freedom, some lead to suffering. A wise person does not wait until life becomes unbearable before examining what they are planting. At night, before sleep, review the day. This habit is powerful because it prevents unconscious living from continuing unchecked. Most people never examine their day. They collapse into sleep carrying the same confusion, resentment, craving, and distraction. Then they wake up and repeat it. Days become weeks. Weeks become months, months become years, and eventually they say, "How did my life become this?" It became this through unexamined repetition. Your life is not mostly shaped by occasional dramatic moments. It is shaped by what you repeat and refuse to examine. So before this year ends, stop letting days disappear without wisdom. At night, sit quietly for a few minutes. Ask yourself, what did I plant today? Not, was today perfect? That is not the question. Ask, what did I plant? Did you plant patience or irritation? Did you plant honesty or deception? Did you plant compassion or judgment? Did you plant discipline or avoidance? Did you plant gratitude or complaint? Did you plant mindfulness or distraction? Did you plant forgiveness or resentment? Look clearly. This is not about hating yourself. Shame is often just ego in a darker costume. It still revolves around me. I am terrible. I am hopeless. I always fail. That is not wisdom. That is self-centered suffering. Buddhist reflection is cleaner. It says, this action led toward suffering. This action led toward freedom. I will learn. No drama, no self-attack. Just truth. If you spoke harshly, acknowledge it. If possible, repair it. If you wasted time, acknowledge it. Set a cleaner intention. If you acted from jealousy, acknowledge it. Practice sympathetic joy. If you lied, acknowledge it. Return to truth. If you indulged craving, acknowledge it. Strengthen restraint tomorrow. This nightly habit makes you accountable to your own awakening, and that matters because without accountability, spirituality becomes decoration. People can quote teachings, wear beads, share wise sayings, talk about energy, talk about peace, talk about compassion, and still live in unconscious karma every day. Words about awakening do not equal awakening. Aesthetic spirituality does not equal transformation. The path is proven in conduct. How do you speak when angry? How do you act when no one sees? How do you treat people who cannot benefit you? How do you respond when you do not get what you want? How do you handle success? How do you handle rejection? How do you behave when desire rises? How quickly do you repair harm? That is where your practice is tested. Nightly reflection keeps you from lying to yourself. It also helps you notice progress. This is important. Many people only notice their failures. But you must also notice wholesome seeds. Did you pause instead of reacting? Good. Did you listen with patience? Good. Did you avoid gossip? Good. Did you meditate even briefly? Good. Did you let go faster than before? Good. Did you act generously? Good. Recognizing wholesome actions strengthens them. But do not turn progress into pride. Pride is another trap. The mind says, I am becoming spiritual. I am better than others. Be careful. The moment your practice becomes superiority, delusion has entered through the back door. True progress makes you humbler because you see how much conditioning still remains. At night, review with humility. A useful practice is to ask 3 questions. First, where was I unconscious today? This question reveals where suffering entered. Maybe you were unconscious while scrolling. Maybe you were unconscious while eating. Maybe you were unconscious in speech. Maybe you were unconscious in a reaction. Maybe you were unconscious in a fantasy. Do not be vague. Name it. Second, where did I practice well today? This question reveals strengths. Maybe you returned to the breath. Maybe you acted kindly. Maybe you restrained anger. Maybe you completed a responsibility. Maybe you noticed craving without obeying it. This matters because the path grows through encouragement as well as correction. Third, what is one intention for tomorrow? Keep it simple. Not 20 intentions. 1. Tomorrow, I will guard my speech. Tomorrow, I will sit before touching my phone. Tomorrow, I will not join gossip. Tomorrow, I will practice patience with my family. Tomorrow, I will complete one difficult task. Tomorrow, I will eat mindfully. Tomorrow, I will release this resentment again. One clean intention is stronger than a long list you forget by morning. This habit also changes sleep. Many people sleep with unresolved mental noise. They carry the day into the night and the night into the next day. But when you reflect honestly, repent in the sense of turning back, forgive where possible, release what is unnecessary, and set intention, the mind becomes less tangled. You are not just ending the day, you are completing it. There is a difference. Ending the day means the clock changed. Completing the day means wisdom was extracted from it. Even a painful day can become valuable if you learn from it. Even a mistake can become a teacher if you stop defending it. Even an argument can reveal your attachment. Even disappointment can reveal where craving was hiding. Nothing is wasted when awareness is present. This is a powerful Buddhist attitude. Life becomes the teacher. Every moment becomes material for awakening. The difficult person teaches patience. The delay teaches non-attachment. The insult teaches ego observation. The craving teaches impermanence. The loss teaches letting go. The ordinary breath teaches presence, but only if you reflect. Without reflection, experience repeats. With reflection, experience becomes wisdom. Before this year ends, stop living like days are disposable. They are not. Every day is your life in miniature. How you live the day is how you live the life. If you want a different life, live one different day. Then repeat. At night, remember death too. This may sound heavy, but in Buddhism, remembering death is not meant to depress you. It is meant to wake you up. You do not have infinite time to practice. You do not have infinite time to love wisely. You do not have infinite time to forgive. You do not have infinite time to stop wasting your mind on nonsense. One day, the day you are reviewing will be your last day. You do not know when. This truth should simplify you. It should make petty arguments less attractive. It should make ego games look stupid. It should make resentment feel too expensive. It should make practice urgent, not frantic. Urgent in the calm way a wise person understands value. When you remember death, you stop postponing your awakening. You stop saying, "One day I will be peaceful." You stop saying, "One day I will meditate." You stop saying, "One day I will forgive." You stop saying, "One day I will live simply." You stop saying, "One day I will stop feeding this craving." One day is not a plan. It is often fear wearing perfume. Practice tonight. Review the day. Bow inwardly to what taught you. Repair what you can. Release what you cannot carry. Set one intention. Sleep with a cleaner heart. If you do this for 6 months, your life will change because you will no longer allow unconscious patterns to hide for long. You will catch them. You will learn. You will adjust. You will plant better seeds, and better seeds, given time and care, produce a different harvest. Before this year ends, you do not need to become a perfect person. You need to become an honest practitioner. Win the morning before the world enters your mind. Guard your speech like it shapes your destiny. Consume only what you are willing to become. Practice letting go before life forces you to. Train compassion until it becomes stronger than your ego. Do one difficult thing every day with right effort. End each day by looking honestly at your karma. These 7 habits are not complicated, but do not confuse simple with easy. Simple means clear, easy means effortless. These habits require effort. They require repetition. They require you to stop making excuses for the mind that keeps creating suffering. And this is where your life can truly change, not because you heard these words once, but because you live them. For the next 6 months, do not chase a new identity. Do not obsess over appearing spiritual. Do not announce your transformation to everyone. Just practice, quietly, consistently, honestly. Let people notice your peace before they hear your explanation. Let your reactions become slower. Let your words become cleaner. Let your desires become less tyrannical. Let your compassion become wider. Let your discipline become steadier. Let your nights become more honest. Let your mornings become sacred, and when the year ends, perhaps the world will look the same in many ways. The same streets, the same responsibilities, the same imperfect people, the same changing conditions. But you will not be the same, and when the mind changes, the whole world is experienced differently. That is the miracle people overlook. The path does not always give you a new world. First, it gives you new eyes, and with new eyes, even an ordinary life becomes a place of awakening. So begin. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when life becomes easier. Begin with this breath. This breath is the gate. Enter. 8. Choose noble company before your environment chooses your mind. The 8th habit that can change your life before this year ends is learning to choose your company with wisdom. This is one of the most underestimated habits on the path. People talk about meditation. They talk about discipline. They talk about healing, peace, awakening, purpose, and self-growth. But then they keep surrounding themselves with people, conversations, environments, and influences that constantly pull them back into the very mind they claim they want to escape. That is not wisdom. That is contradiction. You cannot keep sitting with people who feed your anger and then wonder why your heart is never peaceful. You cannot keep listening to people who complain every day and then wonder why gratitude feels difficult. You cannot keep giving your attention to those who mock discipline, laugh at sincerity, normalize laziness, worship gossip, and live in endless craving, and then expect your mind to become clear by accident. The mind is not separate from its conditions. This is a very Buddhist truth. Causes and conditions shape experience. If you place a seed in dry, poisoned soil, do not blame the seed when it struggles. If you place your mind every day in poisoned conversations, poisoned entertainment, poisoned relationships, and poisoned environments, do not be shocked when your inner life becomes weak, reactive, jealous, fearful, and restless. You may think you are strong enough to be unaffected by your surroundings, but that is often ego talking. The ego loves to say, "I can handle it." But look honestly at your life. Are you handling it, or are you slowly becoming like what you keep tolerating? That question is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. In Buddhism, noble friendship is not optional decoration, it is central to the path. The people around you can either support your awakening or strengthen your delusion. A wise companion reminds you of your highest self. A foolish companion gives permission to your lowest self. A noble friend does not flatter your suffering. They help you see clearly. They do not pull you deeper into gossip, hatred, craving, and confusion. They point you back to truth, responsibility, compassion, and freedom. This does not mean you should become arrogant and think you are better than everyone. That would be another trap. The moment you use spirituality to look down on others, you have already fallen into delusion. Choosing noble company is not about superiority. It is about protection. It is about knowing that your mind is precious and that your path needs conditions that help it grow. A beginner plant needs protection from harsh winds. That does not mean the plant hates the wind. It means the plant understands its stage of growth. You must understand your stage of growth. If your anger is still strong, Do not spend all your time with angry people and pretend you are practicing patience. If your craving is still strong, do not constantly place yourself in environments designed to inflame desire and pretend you are practicing non-attachment. If your confidence is still fragile, do not keep feeding yourself comparison and pretend it does not affect you. If your mind is easily disturbed, do not live as if every influence is harmless. That is not strength, that is carelessness. The Buddha's path is not careless, it is precise. Before this year ends, look at your circle honestly. Do not romanticize it. Do not defend it automatically. Do not say, "But I have known them for years," as if time alone makes a relationship healthy. Many people have known poison for years too. Familiar does not mean wholesome. Long history does not mean right company. Someone can be present in your life for 10 years and still be training your mind towards suffering every single week. You need to ask better questions. After spending time with this person, is my mind clearer or more confused? Is my heart softer or more bitter? Do I feel inspired to live rightly or tempted to live unconsciously? Do our conversations lead toward wisdom or toward gossip? Do they respect my growth or quietly resent it? Do they bring out my discipline or my excuses? Do they remind me of the path or pull me away from it? These questions will tell you the truth faster than sentiment will. Some people are not evil. They are simply not good conditions for your awakening. That distinction matters. You do not need to hate them. You do not need to condemn them. You do not need to create drama. But you do need to stop pretending that every connection deserves equal access to your life. Access is not compassion. Access is responsibility. You can have goodwill toward someone and still limit their influence. You can wish someone peace and still not give them your mind every day. You can forgive someone and still recognize that their presence keeps awakening your worst patterns. You can love people from a distance when closeness becomes a repeated cause of suffering. This is difficult for many people because they confuse detachment with betrayal. They think stepping back means they are cruel. Sometimes it is not cruelty. Sometimes it is wisdom finally arriving late. If a relationship constantly feeds your delusion, your resentment, your craving, your insecurity, your laziness, or your self-abandonment, then staying close without awareness is not loyalty. It is participation in your own decline. Be honest. There are people who can bring out a version of you that took years to heal from. One conversation with them, and suddenly you are defensive again, childish again, anxious again, bitter again, desperate again, begging for validation again. You leave their presence and feel like you have stepped backward on the path. If this happens again and again, stop pretending it is random. That relationship is a condition. A condition for what? That is the question. Some people are conditions for peace. Some are conditions for chaos. Some are conditions for wisdom. Some are conditions for craving. Some are conditions for discipline. Some are conditions for excuse-making. Some are conditions for compassion. Some are conditions for gossip and judgment. You cannot choose every condition in life, but you can choose more than you admit. Many people say, "I have no choice." Usually, that is not completely true. Sometimes what they mean is, "I do not want the discomfort of choosing." They do not want the awkward conversation. They do not want the loneliness that may follow. They do not want to disappoint people. They do not want to be misunderstood. They do not want others to call them changed, proud, distant, or cold. So they stay available to environments that keep them spiritually sick. That is a bad trade. You are trading your peace for the approval of people who may not even respect your peace. Before this year ends, stop making that trade. Choosing noble company does not mean you abandon everyone who is struggling. That would be selfish and immature. Buddhism is compassion. You can support people, you can be kind, you can listen, you can serve. But there is a difference between helping someone and being swallowed by their unconsciousness. There is a difference between compassion and emotional entanglement. There is a difference between being present and being consumed. A drowning person cannot save another drowning person by pretending water is not dangerous. If someone is lost in bitterness and you are not stable, their bitterness may become your bitterness. If someone is addicted to drama and you are still craving excitement, their drama may become your home. If someone is full of envy and you are still insecure, their envy may infect your vision. That does not mean you hate them. It means you must know your capacity. Wisdom knows capacity. The ego wants to be the savior. Wisdom knows when to step back. The ego wants to be needed. Wisdom knows that being needed can become a chain. The ego says, "Only I can help them." Wisdom says, "I can act kindly without becoming attached to controlling their awakening." That is important. Some of you are not surrounded by bad people. You are surrounded by wounded people, unconscious people, frightened people, angry people, needy people, and people who have never learned to sit with themselves. But if you make yourself endlessly available to every wound, you will eventually have no energy left for your own practice. Then you will become resentful. And resentment often comes from a boundary you refuse to set. You say yes when wisdom says no. You listen for hours when your body is tired. You absorb someone's complaints every day and then secretly dislike them for draining you. You keep rescuing people from consequences and then wonder why they never grow. You call it compassion, but deep down you are angry because you know you are abandoning yourself. This must stop. A Buddhist life requires compassion, but compassion must include clarity. You are not required to become a container for everyone's unprocessed pain. You are not required to answer every message immediately. You are not required to explain your growth to those committed to misunderstanding it. You are not required to remain in the same emotional patterns because someone else is uncomfortable with your peace. Choose noble company, and if you cannot find it immediately, choose solitude over toxic company. This is a hard lesson, but it is necessary. Many people remain in poor company because they fear being alone. They would rather be surrounded by noise than sit with their own mind. But solitude is not the enemy. Unconscious solitude can become loneliness, yes, but conscious solitude becomes a monastery. It becomes a place where the mind is cleaned. It becomes a place where you hear your own heart again. It becomes a place where you stop performing and start seeing. Bad company is often more dangerous than solitude. In solitude, your wounds may speak. In bad company, your wounds may be praised, fed, and normalized. There is a huge difference. If you sit alone and feel sadness, you can observe sadness. If you sit with bitter people, they may teach your sadness to become hatred. If you sit alone and feel desire, you can observe desire. If you sit with craving people, they may teach your desire to become obsession. If you sit alone and feel insecurity, you can observe insecurity. If you sit with jealous people, they may teach your insecurity to become comparison and resentment. Solitude reveals the mind. Poor company often corrupts it. So do not run from solitude too quickly. Use it wisely. Sit. Read teachings. Walk quietly. Reflect. Chant. Breathe. Journal. Clean your space. Serve where you can. Let your nervous system remember what it feels like not to be constantly influenced by other people's chaos. At first, solitude may feel empty because you are used to noise, but after some time, you may discover it was not empty. It was spacious, and space is exactly what your mind needed. The habit of choosing noble company also applies to the voices you allow into your life from a distance. Today, your companions are not only the people sitting beside you, your companions are also the voices you hear through your phone, the teachers you follow, the creators you watch, the opinions you consume, the comments you read, the arguments you enter, the online personalities you allow to shape your nervous system. Do not be naive. Someone can influence your mind without ever meeting you. Someone can become a daily companion through a screen. If that person feeds fear, lust, anger, comparison, arrogance, cynicism, or greed, They are not harmless. They are part of your mental environment. Ask yourself, who is teaching my mind every day? Because someone is. Maybe it is a wise teacher. Maybe it is an angry stranger. Maybe it is an insecure influencer. Maybe it is a gossip page. Maybe it is a political outrage machine. Maybe it is a luxury lifestyle account designed to make your life feel small. Maybe it is a person who profits from keeping you afraid, craving, and dissatisfied. You must become more selective. Your attention is a monastery gate. Do not leave it open to every wandering thief. This does not mean you avoid all difficult information. Buddhism is not ignorance. You can be aware of suffering in the world. You can be responsible. You can stay informed. But there is a difference between being informed and being mentally colonized by endless outrage. There is a difference between compassion for the world and addiction to disaster. There is a difference between understanding problems and feeding helplessness all day. Choose inputs that strengthen wisdom, not panic. Choose voices that make you more honest, not more hateful. Choose teachers who point you toward practice, not dependency. Choose friends who can celebrate your growth without feeling threatened. Choose conversations that make truth easier. Choose spaces where silence is respected. Choose people who do not require you to betray yourself in order to belong. Belonging that requires self-betrayal is too expensive. Many people are paying that price. They laugh at jokes they find cruel. They join gossip that makes their heart heavy. They pretend to agree with things they know are false. They hide their discipline because their friends mock effort. They downplay their spiritual practice because they fear being judged. They stay small so others can remain comfortable. That is not friendship. That is a cage with familiar voices. A noble friend does not need you to stay unconscious so they can feel safe. A noble friend does not mock your effort. A noble friend does not tempt you back into habits you are trying to leave. A noble friend does not secretly enjoy your weakness because it makes them feel less alone. A noble friend may challenge you, but they challenge you toward clarity, not shame. This is what you should seek. And you must also become this kind of friend. Do not only ask, who supports my awakening? Ask, whose awakening do I support? Are you noble company for others? Or are you the person who pulls people into complaint, gossip, laziness, and craving? Are you the person who makes others feel peaceful after speaking with you? Or do people leave your presence more agitated, insecure, and heavy? Are you honest with compassion? Are you present without controlling? Do you celebrate others without envy? Do you listen without turning everything back to yourself? The path is not only about choosing better people, it is about becoming better company. This is where your ego must be checked. It is easy to say, these people are toxic. Sometimes they are. But sometimes you are also contributing poison. Sometimes you complain and then blame the group for being negative. Sometimes you gossip and then accuse others of gossiping. Sometimes you want wise friends while refusing to become wise yourself. Sometimes you demand support but offer none. Sometimes you want others to respect your growth while you secretly judge theirs. Do not use this lesson to feel superior. Use it to become responsible. A noble companion has certain qualities. They are not perfect, but they are sincere. They value truth more than image. They can admit mistakes. They do not constantly feed your ego. They can speak honestly without cruelty. They respect boundaries. They encourage wholesome effort. They do not celebrate your self-destruction. They do not need every conversation to revolve around drama. They are capable of silence. They are capable of gratitude. They are capable of growth. Find such people where you can, and until you find them, study the teachings. Let the Dharma be your companion. Let the Buddha's words become company. Let the example of wise practitioners become company. Let silence become company. Let your breath become company. Let nature become company. Let service become company. You are not as alone as the ego says. The ego says, if these people leave, I will have no one. Wisdom says, if I keep betraying my path to keep them, I will lose myself. And losing yourself is worse than losing company. Before this year ends, make a serious inventory of your environment. Look at your friendships. Look at your family dynamics. Look at your online habits. Look at your workplace conversations. Look at the places you spend time. Look at what your mind becomes in each environment. Do not ask whether you like them. Ask what they cultivate. Some environments cultivate mindfulness. Some cultivate anger. Some cultivate humility. Some cultivate ego. Some cultivate generosity. Some cultivate greed. Some cultivate discipline. Some cultivate laziness. Some cultivate wisdom. Some cultivate delusion. Your environment is not neutral. If you keep returning to a place where your worst habits are fed, then part of you still wants those habits alive. That is blunt, but often true. People do not only stay because they are trapped. Sometimes they stay because the old habit still gets pleasure there. Anger likes angry company. Gossip likes gossiping company. Laziness likes lazy company. Craving likes craving company. Victimhood likes company that confirms helplessness. This is why change can feel threatening. When you choose noble company, the old identity loses its support system. The old self may panic. It will say, you are becoming boring. It will say, you are losing people. It will say, you are too serious. It will say, you are missing out. It will say, go back. Understand this voice. It is not wisdom. It is attachment defending its familiar conditions. Do not obey it blindly. Yes, you may lose some connections, but ask yourself, what are you actually losing? If you lose gossip, chaos, disrespect, temptation, emotional manipulation, and constant negativity, is that really loss? Or is it space being returned to your life? Sometimes what feels like loneliness is actually detox. You are detoxing from being constantly pulled away from yourself. You are detoxing from noise. You are detoxing from approval addiction. You are detoxing from relationships built on unconscious patterns. At first, the absence of chaos feels strange because chaos used to give you identity. Give it time. Peace feels unfamiliar when drama has been your home. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. The habit of noble company can transform every other habit. Morning mindfulness becomes easier when your environment respects silence. Right speech becomes easier when your friends do not live in gossip. Mindful consumption becomes easier when you are not surrounded by people addicted to noise. Letting go becomes easier when you are not constantly reminded to cling. Compassion becomes stronger when you walk with people who practice it. Right effort becomes steadier when you are near people who value discipline. Nightly reflection becomes deeper when your day is not filled with unnecessary chaos. Good conditions do not do the practice for you, but they make practice more possible. This is why monasteries exist. This is why Sangha matters. This is why teachers matter. This is why community matters. Not because awakening is social approval, but because the path is difficult and conditions matter. A wise environment protects the flame until it becomes steady. Your task is to protect the flame. If your flame is still small, stop standing in storms and boasting about strength. Protect it, feed it, surround it with care, let it grow. One day, when the flame is strong, you may be able to enter difficult places without being extinguished. But do not pretend you are there if you are not. False strength is dangerous. Real strength knows when to withdraw. Real strength knows when to say no. Real strength knows when to stop arguing. Real strength knows when an environment is not worth the damage it causes. Real strength does not need to prove itself by staying where wisdom has already told it to leave. This does not mean you abandon your duties. If you have family responsibilities, workplace responsibilities, or social obligations, you may not be able to fully leave every difficult environment. But you can change your relationship to it. You can reduce unnecessary exposure. You can stop participating in harmful conversations. You can set limits. You can create inner distance. You can seek nourishing company elsewhere. You can stop expecting unconscious people to provide conscious support. That last point is important. Stop expecting depth from shallow places. Stop expecting peace from chaotic people. Stop expecting wisdom from those who have never trained their mind. Stop expecting emotional maturity from people committed to blame. Stop expecting respect for your path from people threatened by discipline. Expecting mangoes from a thorn bush is not optimism. It is confusion. See people clearly. Love them with wisdom. But do not keep demanding from them what they have not cultivated. This will save you much suffering. When you stop expecting unconscious people to behave consciously, you become less shocked. You stop taking everything personally. You stop trying to force understanding where there is no readiness. You stop performing your growth for people who cannot recognize it. You stop begging for validation from those who benefit from your insecurity. Then you become free to choose better conditions. A noble friend may not always comfort you. Sometimes they will disturb your ego. They may tell you, you are avoiding responsibility. They may say, you are speaking from anger. They may say, you are attached. They may say, you keep telling the same story, but you are not practicing. At first, this may irritate you. But if their intention is clean and their words are wise, listen. Do not only seek friends who soothe your delusion. Many people call someone supportive when that person agrees with their excuses. That is not support. That is collaboration with suffering. Real support helps you wake up, sometimes gently, sometimes directly, but always toward freedom. You also need teachers, even if not personally. Learn from those who embody the path. Read the teachings, listen to Dharma talks, study the lives of practitioners, spend time with words that do not merely entertain you, but refine you. But be careful here too. Not every spiritual voice is wise. Some people use spiritual language to feed ego, money, power, dependency, or fantasy. A true teaching points you back to practice, ethics, humility, and direct seeing. A false teaching makes you dependent, superior, reckless, or disconnected from responsibility. Use discernment. Do not follow someone just because they sound mystical. Do not trust someone just because they speak calmly. Do not surrender your intelligence because someone uses sacred words. In Buddhism, wisdom must be tested in life. Does this teaching reduce greed, hatred, and delusion? Does it increase compassion, clarity, and responsibility? Does it make you more honest? Does it make you more awake? Or does it make you more special, more passive, more confused, more dependent, and more detached from real conduct? The fruit reveals the tree. Choose teachers and companions by fruit, not performance. Before this year ends, make your life less available to foolishness. That sentence may sound harsh, but it is needed. Your life is not endless. Your attention is not endless. Your emotional energy is not endless. Your days are not endless. Every hour you spend in foolish company is an hour not spent cultivating wisdom. Every conversation that feeds resentment is a conversation that shapes your karma. Every environment that normalizes unconsciousness makes awakening harder. You must stop acting like you have unlimited time to waste. Remember death. One day, you will not be able to choose another day of practice. One day, the conversations will stop. The scrolling will stop. The social games will stop. The arguments will stop. The body will stop. And what will remain important then? The gossip? The approval? The need to fit in? The fear of being called different? No. What will matter is the quality of the mind you cultivated, the karma you planted, the love you gave, the wisdom you practiced, the freedom you touched. So choose now. Choose people who make you remember what matters. Choose silence when noise becomes poison. Choose solitude when company requires self-betrayal. Choose teachings that sharpen truth. Choose friends who can sit with your growth without dragging you backward. Choose conversations that leave your heart cleaner. Choose communities where practice is respected. Choose environments where your nervous system can breathe. And when you cannot choose the outer environment, choose the inner posture. Stand inwardly with the Dharma. Breathe. Remember impermanence. Remember compassion. Remember right speech. Remember that another person's unconsciousness does not have to become yours. Remember that you can be kind without merging. Remember that you can be firm without hatred. Remember that you can leave a conversation internally before you leave it physically. This is practice in the real world. Not everyone will understand. Let them misunderstand. Some people only recognize you through the old role you played in their life. When you stop playing it, they may accuse you of changing. They are right. You are changing. That is the point. They may say you are distant. Maybe you are. Distance from confusion is not always a problem. They may say you think you are better. Do not waste your life trying to prove your humility to people who are angry that they can no longer access your weakness. Stay respectful. Stay clear. Keep practicing. Do not make your growth loud. Let it be steady. There is no need to announce, "I am cutting off toxic people." That often becomes ego drama. Simply become less available to what harms your path. Respond less to gossip. Spend less time in draining spaces. Stop feeding arguments. Stop explaining your boundaries to those who only want to negotiate them. Move quietly toward better conditions. The deepest changes often happen without public announcement. A tree does not shout while growing roots. Grow roots. Noble company is root protection. Wise solitude is root protection. Mindful consumption is root protection. Right speech is root protection. Daily effort is root protection. Reflection is root protection. These habits work together. They form a life where awakening becomes more natural because suffering is no longer being fed from every direction. After 6 months of choosing your company wisely, you may notice something powerful. Your cravings may weaken because fewer people are feeding them. Your anger may soften because fewer conversations inflame it. Your discipline may strengthen because you are less surrounded by excuse-making. Your self-respect may grow because you stopped betraying yourself to belong. Your mind may become quieter because you stopped letting every noisy influence enter. This is not luck. This is cause and effect. Better conditions, better seeds, better harvest. But do not become rigid. The path is not about fearing everyone. It is about awareness. You can meet all kinds of people with compassion. You can work with difficult people. You can love imperfect family. You can serve those who suffer. But inwardly, you must know what each condition does to your mind, and you must respond with wisdom. You do not need to hate the mud to keep your robe clean. That is the attitude. Walk through the world with compassion, but do not roll your mind in every mud puddle. Listen to suffering, but do not become addicted to suffering. Help where you can, but do not use helping to avoid your own practice. Love people, but do not let attachment disguise itself as loyalty. Be kind, but do not be available for endless unconsciousness. Choose noble company. Become noble company. Protect the mind, protect the path. Before this year ends, ask yourself clearly, who and what am I allowing to shape me? Then answer with your life, because whether you admit it or not, your environment is already shaping you. Your conversations are shaping you. Your friendships are shaping you. Your screens are shaping you. Your routines are shaping you. Your teachers are shaping you. Your silence or lack of silence is shaping you. The only question is whether you will participate consciously. A Buddhist practitioner does not blame conditions forever. A Buddhist practitioner studies conditions, adjusts conditions, and uses conditions for awakening. If the room is dark, open the window. If the soil is poor, enrich it. If the company is harmful, limit it. If the mind is weak, train it. If the heart is bitter, soften it. If the path is unclear, seek the wise. Do not wait for a perfect Sangha to begin. Begin by removing the most obvious poisons. Begin by reducing the loudest distractions. Begin by giving more time to the wisest voice available. Begin by becoming a safer place for your own mind. Begin by being the kind of person a noble friend would recognize. Then, slowly, the outer world may begin to change too. Not always immediately, not always dramatically, but as your mind changes, your choices change. As your choices change, your conditions change. As your conditions change, your life takes a different shape. This is how transformation happens, not by fantasy, by causes, by conditions, by repeated wise action. So choose carefully, sit with those who value truth, walk with those who practice compassion, learn from those who embody humility. Keep distance from those who feed your delusion. Bless everyone, but do not give everyone the same access. Love widely, but attach blindly to no one. Let solitude teach you. Let noble friendship strengthen you. Let the Dharma guide you when human company is absent. And above all, remember this. The people around you are either helping you wake up or helping you stay asleep. Choose awakening. 9. Turn every pain into practice before it turns into bitterness. The 9th habit that can change your life before this year ends is learning to turn every pain into practice before it turns into bitterness. This habit is not soft, it is not comfortable, it is not something the ego enjoys, but it is one of the deepest habits on the Buddhist path because pain is unavoidable, while bitterness is optional. Suffering will visit every human life. Loss will visit. Disappointment will visit. Aging will visit. Betrayal may visit. Failure may visit. Loneliness may visit. Fear may visit. And if you do not know how to meet these visitors with awareness, they will not simply pass through you, they will settle inside you, shape your personality, harden your face, poison your speech, and quietly turn your heart against life. This is what happens to many people. They do not become bitter in one moment, they become bitter slowly. One disappointment is swallowed without wisdom, one betrayal is carried without understanding, one humiliation becomes an identity, one rejection becomes a worldview. One loss becomes a permanent suspicion toward happiness, and after years of carrying pain unconsciously, they no longer say, "I was hurt." They say, "This is who I am." That is dangerous, because pain is an experience, but bitterness is a conclusion. Pain says, "This hurt me." Bitterness says, "Life is against me." Pain says, "Someone acted without wisdom." Bitterness says, "No one can be trusted." Pain says, "I lost something." Bitterness says, "Nothing good stays." Pain says, "I failed." Bitterness says, "I am a failure." Pain is a wound. Bitterness is the story the untrained mind builds around the wound. The Buddhist path does not ask you to pretend pain is not real. That would be foolish. The Buddha did not deny suffering. He placed suffering at the beginning of the teaching, because a path that refuses to look at suffering becomes shallow. But the Buddha also did not worship suffering. He did not tell people to build an identity around wounds. He did not say, "Because you suffer, you are helpless." He said, in essence, look deeply, understand the cause, see the craving, the clinging, the ignorance. There is a way out. That is the difference between pain and practice. Pain without awareness becomes bitterness. Pain with awareness becomes wisdom. Before this year ends, you must train yourself to meet pain differently. Not dramatically, not with self-pity, not by pretending to be above it, not by rushing to distract yourself, not by immediately blaming someone else, not by turning every difficult moment into a personal tragedy. Meet pain like a practitioner. Meet it with the question, what is this teaching me about clinging, impermanence, ego, compassion, and freedom? That question changes everything. When someone disappoints you, the ordinary mind says, how could they do this to me? The practicing mind also feels the hurt, but then asks, what expectation was I clinging to? What did I believe this person was supposed to provide? Did I confuse love with control? Did I ignore signs because desire wanted comfort? Can I protect myself without hatred? When life does not go according to your plan, the ordinary mind says, everything is ruined. The practicing mind feels the frustration, but then asks, was I attached to one outcome as if it were the only path? Can I act wisely under changed conditions? Can I loosen the fist around what I wanted and still take the next right step? When someone insults you, the ordinary mind says, I must defend myself, I must attack back, I must prove my worth. The practicing mind feels the sting, but then asks, what part of the ego is burning? Is there truth here I should examine? Is there ignorance here I should not absorb? Can I respond without adding more poison? When loneliness appears, the ordinary mind says, I am unwanted, I am forgotten, I need someone to save me from this feeling. The practicing mind feels the ache, but then asks, can I sit with this without running? Can loneliness become a doorway into compassion for all beings who feel unseen? Can I learn to be present with myself instead of begging the world to distract me from myself? This is how pain becomes practice. You do not deny it, you do not dramatize it, you study it. Every pain contains a teaching, but the teaching does not reveal itself to a mind that is busy complaining. The teaching reveals itself when you become still enough to observe. This is why mindfulness is not just a peaceful habit, it is a survival skill for the heart. Without mindfulness, pain immediately becomes reaction. With mindfulness, pain becomes information. It tells you where you are attached. It tells you where the ego is fragile. It tells you where compassion is underdeveloped. It tells you where old wounds are still controlling present perception. A painful moment can reveal 10 years of conditioning if you are willing to look. But most people do not look. They react. They distract. They blame. They post. They gossip. They seek sympathy from people who will confirm their anger instead of challenging their delusion. They replay the scene again and again until the mind becomes addicted to the wound. Then the pain becomes rehearsed. And what is rehearsed becomes stronger. Be careful what you rehearse. If you rehearse resentment, resentment becomes your habit. If you rehearse victimhood, victimhood becomes your identity. If you rehearse fear, fear becomes your lens. If you rehearse revenge, revenge becomes your inner climate. If you rehearse the insult continues long after the person has left. This is why the Buddha's teaching about the second arrow is so important. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life. Someone says something harsh, you lose something, the body becomes sick, a plan fails. A relationship changes, that is the first arrow, but then the mind shoots a second arrow. Why me? This always happens. I cannot bear this. I will never be happy. They ruined my life. I must punish them. I am worthless. Life is unfair. The second arrow is the suffering added by mental proliferation. Most people are not only wounded by life, they wound themselves again and again with interpretation. Before this year ends, stop shooting the second arrow. You may not be able to stop every first arrow. You cannot control every person's speech. You cannot control every change. You cannot prevent aging. You cannot prevent every loss. You cannot make everyone act with wisdom. But you can train the mind not to turn pain into a lifelong prison. This is serious practice. When pain arises, pause. Do not rush to explain it. Do not rush to accuse. Do not rush to escape. First, feel the body. Where is the pain living? Is it tightness in the chest, heat in the face, pressure in the throat, weight in the stomach, trembling in the hands, restlessness in the legs? Before it becomes a story, it is sensation. Return to sensation. This is powerful because stories multiply suffering, but sensation brings you back to reality. The mind says, they disrespected me because I am nothing. That is a story. The body says, there is heat, tightness, contraction. That is direct experience. The mind says, my future is ruined. That is a story. The body says, there is fear, pressure, shallow breathing. That is direct experience. The mind says, no one cares. That is a story. The body says, there is ache, heaviness, longing. That is direct experience. Meet the direct experience first. Breathe into it. Not to make it disappear immediately. That is another form of craving. Breathe to know it. Breathe to stay with it. Breathe to teach the mind that it does not need to panic every time discomfort appears. This is how you become stronger. Not by avoiding pain, but by learning not to become possessed by it. A person who can sit with pain without instantly becoming cruel, desperate, or unconscious has real strength. This does not mean you tolerate injustice. This does not mean you stay in harmful situations. This does not mean you accept abuse. Do not twist the teaching. Buddhism does not ask you to become passive in the face of harm. It asks you to act from wisdom instead of hatred. You can leave. You can set boundaries. You can report harm. You can protect yourself. You can speak firmly. You can take practical action. But you do not need to poison your own heart in order to protect your life. That is the difference. Some people believe anger is the only source of strength. That is because they have never trained deeper strength. Anger can create movement, but it often burns the one who carries it. Wisdom can create action without inner destruction. Compassion can create boundaries without cruelty. Clarity can say no without hatred. A Buddhist practitioner does not become weak. A Buddhist practitioner becomes less controlled by emotional intoxication. Pain will test whether your practice is real. It is easy to speak of compassion when no one has insulted you. It is easy to speak of letting go when nothing important has been taken. It is easy to speak of peace when everyone treats you well. It is easy to speak of mindfulness when the mind is already calm. But the path is not proven in perfect conditions. The path is proven when the old wound is touched and you do not obey the old reaction. That moment is sacred. When someone triggers you and you pause instead of attacking, that is practice. When loneliness rises and you breathe instead of running to a harmful attachment, that is practice. When jealousy appears and you bless another person instead of poisoning yourself with comparison, that is practice. When failure appears and you learn instead of collapsing into shame, that is practice. When grief appears and you allow tears without turning life into an enemy, that is practice. Practice is not only what happens on the cushion. Practice is what happens when life presses against the places in you that are not free. This is why pain can become a teacher. Not because pain is pleasant, not because you should seek suffering. That would be foolish. Pain becomes a teacher because it reveals attachment. It reveals where you still demand permanence from impermanent things. It reveals where you still demand satisfaction from what cannot fully satisfy. It reveals where the ego still believes, life must obey me before I can be peaceful. Every painful reaction contains a hidden demand. Look for it. Anger often contains the demand, reality must happen my way. Jealousy contains the demand, I must be above others to feel enough. Fear contains the demand, I must control the future before I can breathe. Resentment contains the demand, the past must change before I can be free. Shame contains the demand, I must have been perfect to deserve kindness. Grief often contains the demand, what I love must not change. These demands are human, but they are also roots of suffering. The Buddhist path does not shame you for having them, it asks you to see them clearly. Seeing clearly is the beginning of release. When you see, I am suffering because I am demanding permanence from an impermanent relationship, something loosens. When you see, I am suffering because I made another person's approval the foundation of my worth, something loosens. When you see, I am suffering because I wanted control over causes and conditions far beyond me, something loosens. The loosening may be small, but it is real. Do not expect one insight to erase all suffering forever. That is fantasy. The mind has old grooves. It will return to them. Your work is to notice sooner, return sooner, release sooner, and choose wisdom sooner. 6 months of this can change you deeply. Not because pain disappears, but because pain stops ruling you with the same authority. That is freedom beginning. Before this year ends, make this a daily vow. Whatever hurts me today, I will not turn it into hatred. Say it seriously. Whatever hurts me today, I will not turn it into hatred. This does not mean you will not feel anger. Anger may arise. Let it arise. Know it. Feel its heat. Understand its message. But do not worship it. Do not let it become your teacher. Do not hand it the steering wheel of your speech and actions. Anger is a visitor. Do not make it the abbot of your inner monastery. If you make anger your teacher, it will teach you to burn. Let wisdom be the teacher. When pain comes, ask, what is the wise response? Not the most satisfying response, not the most dramatic response, not the response that makes the ego feel powerful for 5 minutes. The wise response. Sometimes the wise response is silence. Sometimes it is honest speech. Sometimes it is leaving. Sometimes it is staying and listening. Sometimes it is apologizing. Sometimes it is setting a boundary. Sometimes it is doing nothing until the mind cools. Sometimes it is seeking help. Sometimes it is forgiving. Sometimes it is not yet being ready to forgive, but refusing to feed revenge. Wisdom is not one fixed behavior. Wisdom sees conditions. This is why you must train awareness. Without awareness, you cannot see conditions. You only see your wound. And when you only see your wound, everything becomes personal. Someone is tired, and you think they are rejecting you. Someone disagrees, and you think they are attacking you. Someone succeeds, and you think life is insulting you. Someone changes, and you think you are being abandoned. The wound becomes a lens, and the lens distorts the world. Pain that is not examined becomes perception. This is very important. A hurt person does not simply remember hurt. They often begin to see through hurt. A betrayed person may see betrayal everywhere. An ignored person may see rejection everywhere. A criticized person may hear judgment even in neutral words. An abandoned person may panic at every distance. A humiliated person may become obsessed with respect. This is how past pain controls present life. If you do not practice with pain, pain becomes the interpreter of reality. Then you are not seeing what is here, you are seeing what hurt you before. The habit of turning pain into practice breaks this chain. When a reaction is stronger than the present moment seems to justify, pause and ask, is this only about now, or is an old wound speaking? This question is medicine. It does not dismiss the present. It simply widens the view. Maybe the present situation does need attention, but maybe the intensity belongs partly to the past. The past often borrows the face of the present. Someone says one sentence, and suddenly you are 10 years old again, feeling unseen. Someone does not reply, and suddenly every abandonment wound wakes up. Someone corrects you, and suddenly every humiliation returns. If you are unconscious, you will blame the present person for the entire weight of your history. That is unfair, and it creates suffering. A practitioner learns to separate the present touch from the old wound. This does not happen instantly. It requires humility. You must be willing to admit, my reaction may be larger than this moment. The ego hates that. The ego wants total justification. It wants to say, my anger is completely correct. My interpretation is absolute. My pain gives me the right to react however I want. No, that is not practice. That is the wound demanding authority. Do not give your wound full authority. Listen to it, but do not obey it blindly. Your wound may tell you what needs healing. It may tell you what boundary is needed. It may reveal where care is required. But if you let the wound make every decision, it will build your life around fear. It will choose partners from fear. It will choose words from fear. It will choose silence from fear. It will choose avoidance from fear. It will call this protection, but much of it will be imprisonment. There is a difference between protection and imprisonment. Protection allows life to remain open, while wisdom sets boundaries. Imprisonment closes the heart and calls it safety. Protection says, I will not allow repeated harm. Imprisonment says, I will never trust anyone again. Protection says, I will move carefully. Imprisonment says, I will not move at all. Protection is wise. Imprisonment is fear pretending to be wisdom. Many people are not healed. They are just guarded. They say they are peaceful, but they are numb. They say they have let go, but they have only disconnected. They say they are strong, but they are afraid to feel. They say they need no one, but deep down they are terrified of needing and being disappointed again. Be honest. Buddhism is not numbness. Non-attachment is not emotional shutdown. Peace is not the absence of feeling. It is the ability to feel without being enslaved. If you turn pain into numbness, you have not transformed it. You have frozen it. Frozen pain will still shape you. It may make you cold. It may make you distant. It may make you sarcastic. It may make you unable to receive love. It may make you suspicious of kindness. It may make you proud of not caring. But not caring is not liberation if it comes from fear. True liberation is open, aware, compassionate, and unpossessive. It can love without clinging. It can feel without drowning. It can lose without becoming hatred. It can remember without living in the past. That is the level of freedom you are training for. So when pain arises, do not immediately build a wall. Build awareness first. Say, this is pain. That simple sentence is powerful. Not, this is my life forever. Not, this always happens to me. Not, I am cursed. Not, people are all the same. Say, this is pain. Name it accurately. When you name it accurately, you prevent the mind from turning it into an entire identity. This is sadness. This is anger. This is fear. This is disappointment. This is grief. This is shame. This is loneliness. This is craving. This is attachment. The more clearly you name it, the less completely you become it. You are not the sadness. Sadness is present. You are not the anger. Anger is present. You are not the fear. Fear is present. You are not the wound. The wound is present. This small shift creates space. And in that space, practice becomes possible. Without space, reaction controls everything. In Buddhist meditation, you learn to observe arising and passing. The breath arises and passes. Sensation arises and passes. Thoughts arise and pass. Emotions arise and pass. Painful states arise and pass. This is not theory. You can verify it. No emotion stays the same forever. Even the strongest anger changes in texture if observed. Even grief moves in waves. Even fear rises, peaks, trembles, shifts, softens. But when the mind adds story, the emotion gets renewed. Story keeps pain alive. This is not saying the story is false. Sometimes the story contains facts. Someone did leave. Someone did lie. Something did fail. A loss did happen. But the mind often repeats the story not to understand, but to reopen the wound. There is a difference between wise reflection and compulsive replay. Wise reflection asks, what happened? What was my part? What can be learned? What must be accepted? What must change? Compulsive replay says, let me suffer this again. Let me imagine better replies. Let me punish them in my mind. Let me prove again that I was wronged. Let me keep the wound fresh. Be honest about which one you are doing. Many people call it processing when they are actually rehearsing. They call it healing when they are actually feeding resentment. They call it seeking closure when they are actually reopening the door every day. Do not lie to yourself. If thinking about it makes you clearer, softer, wiser, and more free, it may be reflection. If thinking about it makes you more bitter, more obsessed, more hateful, and more trapped, it is probably rumination. Rumination is not healing, it is suffering chewing itself. Before this year ends, stop giving unlimited time to thoughts that produce no wisdom. When a painful memory returns, ask, is there something new to learn here, or am I simply feeding the old fire? If there is something to learn, learn it. If there is a repair to make, make it. If there is a boundary to set, set it. If there is grief to feel, feel it. But if the mind is only replaying to keep the identity alive, bow to the thought and return to the present. You may need to do this hundreds of times. That is okay. Each return weakens the chain. This habit also asks you to stop using pain as permission to abandon your values. This is where many people fail. They are kind until they are hurt, honest until they are afraid, disciplined until they are sad, spiritual until someone disrespects them, compassionate until someone disagrees, patient until life delays their desire. Then the practice disappears, and the old conditioning takes over. Do not be that fragile. Your values mean nothing if they only exist when life is easy. Right speech matters most when harsh speech feels justified. Compassion matters most when resentment is available. Mindfulness matters most when the mind is burning. Non-attachment matters most when craving is loud. Patience matters most when conditions are not obeying you. Pain is the examination room. It reveals what you have actually trained. If you fail the examination, learn. Do not dramatize. If you shouted, acknowledge it. If you acted from fear, acknowledge it. If you clung, acknowledge it. If you became bitter, acknowledge it. Then return. The point is not to maintain a perfect spiritual image. The point is to become more awake. A sincere practitioner is not someone who never reacts. A sincere practitioner is someone who becomes honest faster. That is the habit. Honesty faster, return faster, repair faster, release faster. If you hurt someone because you were hurt, repair it. Do not hide behind your pain. Pain explains behavior sometimes, but it does not automatically excuse it. Many people use their wounds as weapons and then demand understanding. That is immature. If your suffering spills onto others, take responsibility. The fact that you were hurt does not give you the right to become careless with another heart. This is how suffering spreads. Someone is wounded by their parents and then wounds their children. Someone is betrayed and then becomes controlling in the next relationship. Someone is humiliated and then humiliates weaker people. Someone is ignored and then becomes desperate for attention in destructive ways. Someone is abandoned and then tests everyone until they leave. This is how unexamined pain becomes karma. A Buddhist practitioner interrupts the inheritance. You may have received pain from others, but you do not have to pass it on in the same form. This is one of the noblest things you can do with your life. To say, this pain came through me, but it will not continue through me unconsciously. That is powerful. That is not weakness. That is a form of liberation. Maybe you cannot erase what happened, but you can refuse to become its servant. You can choose not to speak to yourself with the same cruelty that others used. You can choose not to punish innocent people for wounds they did not create. You can choose not to build your identity around being damaged. You can choose not to use suffering as an excuse for laziness, bitterness, or manipulation. You can choose to transform the energy. This is not easy, but it is possible, and it begins with daily awareness. When pain comes, sit with it before speaking from it. That alone can save your relationships. Many words spoken in pain become regrets. The mind in pain often wants immediate relief, and one form of relief is expression. But not all expression is wise. Sometimes the urge to speak is just the urge to discharge discomfort onto someone else. If you speak from that place, you may call it honesty, but it may be emotional dumping. Right speech asks you to wait until the heart is clean enough to speak. Clean does not mean painless. It means not intentionally harmful. You can say, "I am hurt." You can say, "This affected me." You can say, "I need space." You can say, "This cannot continue." You can say, "I want to understand what happened." But if your secret intention is to punish, humiliate, control, or make the other person suffer because you are suffering, pause. That is not right speech yet. Let the fire cool. A useful practice is to give pain one full breath before action. At first, one breath may be all you can manage. Later, 3 breaths. Later, 10. Later, a whole day before replying to something that triggers you. This is not avoidance. This is refusing to let the most reactive part of you become your spokesperson. You do not owe every emotion immediate expression. Some emotions need space. Some need silence. Some need walking. Some need journaling. Some need tears. Some need wise counsel. Some need sleep. Some need direct conversation later. Some need nothing except not being fed. Learn the difference. This is part of maturity. Pain also becomes practice when you use it to deepen compassion. This may sound strange, but it is one of the most beautiful transformations. When you suffer consciously, you begin to understand the suffering of others more deeply. Your own grief can make you gentler toward grieving people. Your own loneliness can make you kinder to the lonely. Your own fear can make you less arrogant toward those who are afraid. Your own failure can make you less cruel toward those who stumble. But this only happens if pain opens the heart instead of closing it. Pain can make you compassionate or bitter. It depends on how you hold it. If you hold pain with ego, it says, "No one suffers like me." If you hold pain with Dharma, it says, "Now I understand a little more of the human condition." If you hold pain with ego, it isolates you. If you hold pain with compassion, it connects you to all beings. If you hold pain with delusion, it becomes identity. If you hold pain with wisdom, it becomes a doorway. When you are sad, remember all beings who are sad. When you are afraid, remember all beings who are afraid. When you feel rejected, remember all beings who feel rejected. When you grieve, remember all beings grieving someone, something, some version of life that has passed. This does not make your pain disappear, but it softens the sense of isolation. You are not alone in suffering. This is not meant as a cheap comfort. It is a profound truth. Every being you see is carrying something. Some carry visible burdens. Some carry invisible wounds. Some smile while collapsing inside. Some act harshly because they do not know how to hold their own pain. Some chase pleasure because silence terrifies them. Some seek control because uncertainty feels unbearable. Some hurt others because they never learned another language for their suffering. Again, this does not excuse harm, but it deepens understanding. Compassion does not require blindness. It requires clear seeing. When you see that everyone suffers, arrogance weakens. When you see that harmful people are often driven by ignorance and pain, hatred weakens. When you see that you too have acted unconsciously from pain, judgment becomes less intoxicating. You become firm where needed, but less cruel. Boundaries remain, but hatred becomes unnecessary. This is a high practice. It is easy to hate what hurt you. It is harder to see clearly without hatred. It is easy to build identity around pain. It is harder to let pain humble you without destroying you. It is easy to demand that life never wound you again. It is harder to accept impermanence and still keep the heart open. But this is the path. Before this year ends, make your pain useful. That sentence may sound harsh, but it is true. If pain has already happened, do not waste it. Do not let it only make you bitter. Let it teach you patience. Let it teach you discernment. Let it teach you boundaries. Let it teach you humility. Let it teach you compassion. Let it teach you impermanence. Let it teach you the danger of clinging. Let it teach you how quickly life changes. Let it teach you to stop postponing love. Let it teach you to stop wasting your attention on nonsense. If pain does not teach you, it will only repeat itself in different forms. Some people suffer the same lesson for 20 years because they refuse to learn. They keep choosing the same kind of relationship. They keep ignoring the same inner warning. They keep reacting with the same anger. They keep seeking approval from the same type of person. They keep calling chaos passion. They keep calling attachment love. They keep calling avoidance peace. They keep calling fear intuition. Be careful with the names you give things. Wrong naming creates wrong living. If it is attachment, call it attachment. If it is fear, call it fear. If it is resentment, call it resentment. If it is craving, call it craving. If it is self-pity, call it self-pity. If it is avoidance, call it avoidance. If it is manipulation, call it manipulation. Clear naming is not cruelty, it is liberation. You cannot transform what you keep mislabeling. The Buddhist path is honest. It does not flatter your ego's favorite stories. Sometimes you say, I care too much, but the truth is, you are attached. Sometimes you say, I am just protecting myself, but the truth is, you are afraid to be vulnerable. Sometimes you say, I forgive them, but the truth is, you are avoiding conflict. Sometimes you say, I am being patient, but the truth is, you are afraid to set a boundary. Sometimes you say, I am done with people, but the truth is, you are hurt and hiding. Be honest. Honesty is painful at first, but it prevents years of confusion. When pain enters, ask what it is really showing you. Maybe it shows you that you gave too much power to someone's opinion. Maybe it shows you that you were attached to being appreciated. Maybe it shows you that you ignored your body's signals. Maybe it shows you that you confused intensity with love. Maybe it shows you that your peace depends too much on external conditions. Maybe it shows you that you have not forgiven yourself. Maybe it shows you that your practice is still mostly intellectual. Good. Now you know where to practice. This is why pain is not always the enemy. Unconsciousness is the enemy. Pain can wake you up if you let it. Comfort often keeps people asleep. When life is comfortable, people postpone practice. They say, I will meditate later. I will reflect later. I will change later. I will forgive later. I will simplify later. Then pain comes and exposes the instability of everything they were relying on. Pain can become the bell of awakening, but only if you listen. Do not become addicted to suffering. That is another trap. Some people hear that pain can teach and then unconsciously seek painful patterns because they feel meaningful. No, the path is not to chase suffering. The path is to understand suffering that is already present and stop creating unnecessary suffering. You do not need to stay in harmful conditions to prove you are spiritual. You do not need to suffer more to become wise. Wisdom is not measured by how much pain you endure. It is measured by how clearly you see and how compassionately you live. So if a situation is harmful and you can leave, leave with wisdom. If a pattern is destructive, stop feeding it. If a relationship repeatedly damages your mind, create distance. If an environment inflames craving and confusion, reduce contact. Do not call repeated unnecessary suffering a lesson if the lesson has already been given many times. At some point, staying becomes refusal to learn. This is blunt, but necessary. If you keep touching fire after learning it burns, do not call the burn destiny, call it ignorance. If someone shows you again and again that they are not safe, and you keep handing them your heart without discernment, do not call the next wound a mystery. Call it unwise clinging. If a habit keeps destroying your clarity, and you keep returning to it because it feels good briefly, do not call your suffering unfair. Call it cause and effect. The Buddhist path gives no room for victimhood as a permanent identity. Yes, you may have been harmed. Yes, some things were not your fault. Yes, compassion is needed. But healing also requires responsibility for what you do now. If you refuse responsibility because your pain is real, pain becomes your master. The question is not only, who hurt me? The question is also, what am I doing with the hurt now? That second question is where freedom begins. You may not be responsible for the first wound, but you are responsible for whether you keep reopening it, feeding it, spreading it, or building a life around it. This is not easy to hear, but it is necessary. The path is compassionate, but it is not indulgent. If you want your life to change in 6 months, stop using your past as an altar where you sacrifice your future. The past happened. Some of it may have been unfair, some of it may have been cruel. Some of it may still ache, but if you keep kneeling before it every day, giving it your attention, your energy, your identity, your relationships, and your choices, then the past is not past. It is still governing you. Practice is how you reclaim authority, not by denying the past, by seeing it, grieving it, learning from it, and refusing to let it become your entire mind. This may require forgiveness, but forgiveness must be understood properly. Forgiveness in Buddhism is not pretending harm was acceptable. It is not forcing yourself to feel warmth toward someone unsafe. It is not giving access. It is not forgetting. It is not bypassing justice. Forgiveness is releasing the wish to keep poisoning yourself with hatred. It is putting down the burning coal you were holding because you wanted someone else to feel the heat. Sometimes forgiveness is immediate. Often it is slow. Sometimes it begins as a decision not to seek revenge. Sometimes it begins as a prayer, may I be free from this hatred. Sometimes it begins as distance. Sometimes it begins as admitting, I am not ready to forgive, but I am willing to stop feeding the fire. That willingness matters. Do not fake forgiveness. Fake forgiveness becomes buried resentment, but do not worship unforgiveness either. Some people protect resentment like treasure because it gives them a sense of power. But resentment is expensive. It rents space in your mind. It changes your mood. It affects your body. It disturbs your sleep. It enters your speech. It makes new relationships pay the debt of old wounds. Ask yourself honestly, what has my resentment cost me? Maybe it cost you peace. Maybe it cost you years. Maybe it cost you tenderness. Maybe it cost you trust in people who did not hurt you. Maybe it cost you the ability to enjoy the present. Maybe it cost you spiritual energy. Maybe it cost you your face, your softness, your humor, your openness. Was it worth it? The ego may say yes, because the ego loves being right. But the heart knows the cost. Before this year ends, stop confusing resentment with strength. Resentment is not strength. It is attachment to pain. Strength is remembering what happened, learning from it, protecting yourself wisely, and still not allowing hatred to define your inner life. That is strength. You may carry scars, but scars do not have to become chains. This habit also applies to small daily pains, not only major wounds. In fact, small pains are the training ground. A rude tone, a delay, a lost opportunity, a criticism, a mistake, a moment of being overlooked, a plan interrupted, a craving denied. These small frictions reveal the mind. If you practice with small pain, you prepare for greater pain. If you fail to practice with small pain, greater pain will overwhelm you. Do not wait for tragedy to become a practitioner. Practice when the tea spills. Practice when someone cuts you off. Practice when the message is late. Practice when your body is tired. Practice when the weather changes. Practice when you are not praised. Practice when someone misunderstands you. Practice when desire does not get what it wants. These ordinary moments are not interruptions to the path. They are the path. Every irritation is a small teacher. Every delay is a small teacher. Every disappointment is a small teacher. Every craving is a small teacher. Every uncomfortable emotion is a small teacher. But the teacher cannot teach if the student only complains. Become teachable. A teachable person can grow from anything. An unteachable person can suffer everything and learn nothing. Do not become old in pain, but young in wisdom. There are people who have suffered for decades and still react like children because they never turned suffering into understanding. Time alone does not mature you. Pain alone does not mature you. Experience alone does not mature you. Reflection matures you. Responsibility matures you. Practice matures you. Without practice, people simply become older versions of the same wound. Do not let that be you. For the next 6 months, create a simple method for painful moments. First, stop. Even if only for one breath, stop the automatic momentum. And second, feel. Notice the body. Let the emotion be known as sensation before it becomes story. Third, name. Anger is here. Fear is here. Shame is here. Grief is here. Attachment is here. Fourth, investigate. Ask, what am I clinging to? What am I resisting? What story am I adding? What wise action is needed? Fifth, choose. Do not let the reaction choose. You choose from awareness. Sixth, release what can be released. Maybe not all of it. Maybe 1%. Release 1%. Seventh, learn. At night, reflect on what the pain revealed. This is enough to change your life if practiced consistently. Not because it makes you invincible, it makes you intimate with reality. It trains you to stop outsourcing your inner state to every passing event. It teaches you that even when pain comes, you still have a path. You still have breath. You still have awareness. You still have choice. Maybe not total choice over conditions, but choice in how you meet them. That choice is sacred. Many people throw away that choice and then call themselves powerless. But there is often a small gap, a gap between stimulus and response, a gap between pain and speech, a gap between anger and action, a gap between craving and obedience, a gap between memory and identity. Buddhist practice widens that gap. In that gap, karma changes. In that gap, you stop repeating your parents' anger. In that gap, you stop repeating old relationship patterns. In that gap, you stop turning insecurity into control. In that gap, you stop turning sadness into self-destruction. In that gap, you stop turning disappointment into hatred. In that gap, you stop turning fear into cruelty. That gap is where freedom breathes. Protect it. When pain is strong, you may need support. Do not use practice as an excuse to isolate in dangerous ways. Buddhism values noble friendship. Seek wise counsel. Speak to someone steady. Sit with a teacher if available. Get appropriate help when needed. The path is not egoic self-reliance, but choose support carefully. Do not take your pain to people who only feed your worst interpretation. Do not seek advice only from those who will inflame your anger. Do not confuse agreement with wisdom. When you are hurt, you are vulnerable to bad counsel. A bitter person will teach you bitterness. A fearful person will teach you fear. A vengeful person will teach you revenge. A wise person will not deny your pain, but they will not let you become smaller because of it. They will help you return to clarity. Choose such support, and become such support for others. When someone brings you pain, do not immediately feed their hatred. Listen with compassion, but do not pour fuel on their delusion. You can say, "That sounds painful," without saying, "Yes, you should destroy them." You can validate emotion without validating every interpretation. You can be kind without encouraging unwise action. This is noble friendship. The world has enough people who intensify suffering. Become someone who helps suffering become wisdom. But do not preach at people while they are bleeding. Timing matters. Sometimes the first practice is simply presence. Sit with them, listen, let them breathe, let them feel. Later, when the heart is ready, wisdom can enter. Compassion knows timing. This applies to yourself too. When pain is fresh, do not attack yourself with spiritual ideas. Do not say, "I should be detached." Do not say, "I should not feel this." Do not use Buddhism as a weapon against your own humanity. Feel first. Hold the pain with kindness. Then investigate. Then release. The order matters. If you try to skip feeling, the pain may go underground. If you only feel and never investigate, the pain may become identity. If you investigate without kindness, the mind may become harsh. The middle way is tender and honest. Tender enough to allow pain, honest enough not to worship it. This habit will slowly change the way you see suffering. Instead of asking only, "How do I get rid of this?" you will also ask, "How do I understand this?" That shift is huge. The craving mind wants immediate removal. The wise mind wants liberation. Sometimes removal is possible, sometimes it is not, but understanding is always part of the path. If anxiety comes, understand it. If grief comes, understand it. If anger comes, understand it. If jealousy comes, understand it. If shame comes, understand it. Each state has causes, each state has conditions, each state has a body pattern, a thought pattern, a craving, a fear, a memory, a belief. When you understand causes, you stop being mystified by your own mind. You become less afraid of yourself. Many people are afraid of their own emotions because they have never sat with them long enough to see that emotions are changing phenomena. They think, if I let myself feel this, it will swallow me. Sometimes feelings are intense, yes, but often what swallows people is not the feeling itself. It is the resistance, the story, the panic, the isolation, and the belief that the feeling is permanent. Observe carefully. A wave is powerful, but it is not the whole ocean forever. Let the wave move. You do not need to drown in it, and you do not need to freeze it. You learn to float. You learn to breathe. You learn to trust impermanence. Even this will change. Even this will pass. Even this can be known. These words are not meant as a cliché. They are a practice. This too is changing. Say it while breathing. Say it while feeling the body. Say it while grief moves. Say it while anger burns. Say it while fear trembles. Not to dismiss the emotion, but to place it inside truth. Impermanence is the container. Your pain is real, but it is not permanent in the form it appears. Your mind says it will last forever, because the mind in pain loses perspective. Do not believe every prediction made by a hurting mind. A hurting mind often speaks in extremes. Always, never, everyone, no one, forever, nothing. These words are usually signs that pain has taken over the microphone. Be careful with extreme language. It turns temporary states into permanent prisons. Say instead, right now pain is here. That is accurate. Right now fear is here. Right now I feel alone. Right now I am angry. This keeps the door open. It allows change. It respects impermanence. The way you speak to yourself during pain matters deeply. If you speak with hatred, you add suffering. If you speak with panic, you add suffering. If you speak with exaggeration, you add suffering. If you speak with patience, you create space. If you speak with truth, you create clarity. If you speak with compassion, you create safety. If you speak with Dharma, you create a path. Become a wise inner voice. Many people have inherited cruel inner voices from others. A parent, teacher, partner, society, religion misunderstood, failure, humiliation. Then they continue the cruelty internally and call it normal. Stop. The voice inside your mind is not automatically truth. It may be conditioning. It may be old pain. It may be fear. It may be someone else's ignorance echoing through you. You can train a new voice. A Buddhist inner voice does not say, "You are worthless." It says, "This is suffering. Let us understand it." It does not say, "You failed, so you are finished." It says, "A mistake happened. Learn and return." It does not say, "They hurt you, so hate forever." It says, "Protect yourself wisely, and do not let hatred own the heart." It does not say, "You must be perfect." It says, "Practice sincerely." This voice becomes stronger through repetition. Before this year ends, speak to your pain as you would speak to someone you love who is trying to awaken. Not indulgently, not harshly, clearly, kindly, firmly. Say, "I see you." Say, "This is painful." Say, "We do not need to react blindly." Say, "We can breathe." Say, "We can choose wisdom." Say, "We can learn." Say, "We can begin again." This may feel strange at first. That is because many people are more practiced in self-attack than self-guidance. Continue anyway. Pain also becomes practice when it teaches you the limits of control. Much suffering comes from the hidden belief that you should be able to control more than any human can control. You want to control what people think. You want to control whether love stays. You want to control whether plans succeed. You want to control the timing of healing. You want to control the body's aging. You want to control how others interpret your words. You want to control the future before it arrives. This impossible demand exhausts the mind. Pain often shows you where control failed. Something happened that you did not permit. Someone changed without asking your ego. Life moved outside your plan. The body felt what you did not want. The future became uncertain. In that moment, you can become bitter or you can become humble. Humility says, "I am not the owner of all conditions." This humility is not weakness. It is alignment with reality. You still act, you still care, you still plan. You still protect, you still work. But you stop pretending that your will alone commands the universe. This reduces suffering because much suffering is the friction between reality and the ego's demand that reality should be different. When pain comes from uncontrollable conditions, practice surrender. Not collapse, surrender. Collapse says, "Nothing matters." Surrender says, "This is what has happened. Now what is the wise response?" Collapse is passive. Surrender is clear. Collapse gives up responsibility. Surrender gives up the fantasy of controlling what cannot be controlled. That distinction matters. If illness comes, surrender does not mean refusing treatment. It means meeting the condition without adding hatred toward the body. If loss comes, surrender does not mean pretending you do not grieve. It means allowing grief without demanding that the past return. If failure comes, surrender does not mean quitting life. It means accepting the result enough to learn and move. Surrender is the end of useless inner war. Many people are exhausted not only by what happened, but by arguing with what happened. The event happened once. The mind argues with it thousands of times. It should not have happened. They should not have done that. I should have known. Life should be different. Some of these reflections may contain lessons, but much of it becomes war against reality. You cannot change the past by hating it. You can only use the present wisely. So when the mind returns to fighting what cannot be changed, gently say, "This has happened." Not because you like it, not because it was fair, not because it does not hurt. Say it because truth is the ground of freedom. This has happened. Now let me practice. That sentence can save you years. This has happened. Now let me practice. A relationship ended. This has happened. Now let me practice. A mistake was made. This has happened. Now let me practice. Someone misunderstood me. This has happened. Now let me practice. The body is aging. This is happening. Now let me practice. The plan failed. This has happened. Now let me practice. The practicing mind always has a next step. The ego wants a different past. The Dharma offers a wiser present. Choose the wiser present. This habit will also change how you remember painful events. Instead of memory being a place where you suffer again, memory becomes a place where you bow to what taught you. That does not mean you become grateful for cruelty. Be careful. You do not need to call harm a gift. Some things were simply harmful. But you can still become wise from surviving them. You can still decide that the pain will not have the final word. The wound is not the final word. Your response is part of the story too. If someone abandoned you, the abandonment is not the final word. The way you learn to stay present with yourself matters. If someone betrayed you, the betrayal is not the final word. The way you rebuild discernment without hatred matters. If you failed, the failure is not the final word. The way you practice humility and effort matters. If you lost someone, the loss is not the final word. The way love becomes compassion matters. Do not end the story at the wound. Continue it with practice. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking often tries to paint over pain. Buddhist practice looks directly at pain and asks how liberation can be cultivated here. That is much stronger. It does not need false brightness. It can sit in darkness and still know the path. There will be days when practice feels weak. Days when pain feels bigger than wisdom. Days when you react badly. Days when you repeat old patterns. Do not turn those days into proof that you are hopeless. That is another second arrow. Instead, treat even failure as practice. You reacted. Now observe the reaction. You spoke harshly. Now repair. You clung. Now study the clinging. You became bitter. Now notice the bitterness as a state, not a self. You fell asleep. Now wake up. The path includes waking up after forgetting. Again and again. A person who never forgets is rare. A person who remembers faster is practicing well. For 6 months, measure progress not by whether pain disappears, but by whether pain makes you less unconscious than before. Did you pause faster? Did you recover sooner? Did you blame less? Did you understand more? Did you soften after anger? Did you repair harm? Did you avoid turning one painful moment into a whole identity? Did you choose not to spread your suffering? These are signs of real growth. Not glamorous, real. The world is full of people who want to look healed. Far fewer want to do the work of not bleeding on others. The work is private. It happens in the moment you choose not to send the message written from rage. It happens when you breathe through jealousy. It happens when you cry honestly instead of pretending you do not care. It happens when you say, "I was wrong." It happens when you stop retelling the same story for sympathy and finally ask what must be learned. This is the work that changes a human being. Before this year ends, become serious about it. Do not let your pain go unmanaged like an open flame in a dry forest. It will burn more than you intended. It will burn your speech, your decisions, your relationships, your sleep, your body, and your ability to trust joy. Pain needs wise attention, not obsession. Attention, not dramatization. Care, not identity. Practice. When grief comes, give it space. When anger comes, give it boundaries. When fear comes, give it breath. When shame comes, give it truth. When loneliness comes, give it presence. When craving comes, give it restraint. When resentment comes, give it investigation. When despair comes, give it one next wholesome action. One next wholesome action can be enough. Pain often makes the future look enormous and impossible. Do not try to solve your whole life in one painful moment. That is too much. Return to one breath, one step, one honest sentence, one glass of water, one prayer of compassion, one message of repair, one boundary, one page of teaching, one moment of sitting, one act of service, one refusal to feed the fire. The path is walked one moment at a time. When you are in pain, grand plans may collapse. That is okay. Keep one thread of practice alive. Just one. If you cannot meditate for 30 minutes, breathe consciously for 3 breaths. If you cannot feel compassion for all beings, try not to speak cruelly to one person. If you cannot let go fully, loosen the grip slightly. If you cannot forgive, at least stop rehearsing revenge for 1 hour. If you cannot feel peaceful, be honest without becoming destructive. Small practice during pain is not small. It is heroic in a quiet way. Anyone can speak wisely when comfortable. But one conscious breath in the middle of pain may be more spiritually significant than 100 beautiful words spoken in ease. Remember that. Your pain is not outside the path. Your pain is where the path becomes real. So the next time something hurts you, do not only ask, how do I make this stop? Ask, how do I meet this without losing myself? Ask, how do I protect my heart without closing it? Ask, how do I learn without becoming bitter? Ask, how do I act without hatred? Ask, how do I let this deepen my compassion instead of hardening my ego? These questions are powerful. They turn the mind toward awakening, and when you look back after 6 months, you may notice that the same life events no longer destroy you in the same way. Someone's opinion no longer becomes your prison. A delay no longer becomes a crisis. A painful memory no longer controls the entire day. A rejection no longer proves you are worthless. A mistake no longer becomes identity. An insult no longer demands revenge. Loneliness no longer forces you into bad company. Sadness no longer makes you abandon your path. That is transformation, not the absence of pain, the transformation of your relationship to pain. This is how a human being becomes steady. The world may still be uncertain, people may still be imperfect, the body may still change, plans may still fail, praise and blame may still come and go, but inside something becomes less easily captured. The mind learns, pain can arise and I can remain aware. Anger can arise and I can choose speech. Fear can arise and I can take one wise step. Grief can arise and love can remain. Loss can arise and compassion can deepen. This is freedom that does not depend on perfect conditions, and that is the only freedom worth cultivating, because perfect conditions do not last. Before this year ends, let every pain become a bell. When irritation rings, wake up. When disappointment rings, wake up. When grief rings, wake up. When jealousy rings, wake up. When fear rings, wake up. When shame rings, wake up. When loneliness rings, wake up. Do not curse the bell. Listen to it. It is calling you back to practice, back to the breath, back to the body, back to truth, back to compassion, back to impermanence, back to right effort, back to the path. Pain says, here is where you are not yet free. Thank it for revealing the chain. Then begin loosening the chain, not with force, not with hatred, not with spiritual performance, with steady, honest, patient practice. And remember this clearly. You cannot always choose what touches your life, but you can train how deeply it poisons your heart. You cannot always prevent pain, but you can prevent pain from becoming cruelty. You cannot always control loss, but you can stop loss from turning you against love. You cannot always avoid disappointment, but you can refuse to let disappointment become your religion. Do not worship your wounds. Learn from them. Bow to what they reveal. Care for them. Heal what can be healed. Protect what must be protected. Release what can be released. And walk forward with a heart that is wiser, not harder. That is the habit. Turn every pain into practice before it turns into bitterness. If you do this, your life will not become free from difficulty, but you will become free from the deepest tragedy, allowing difficulty to make you unconscious, cruel, and closed. The Buddha's path is not a path away from life. It is a path through life, with awakened eyes. So when pain comes, do not say, my path has ended. Say, now my practice begins again.